Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. God Rewarding System. Am I a Beast Master? Chapter 1. Dawang, let's go and find a good family. Suju threw the rhubarb that had been with him for 5 years from the 3rd floor. Looking at the fire that had spread to the bedroom, Suju knew that with his disabled legs, he would definitely not be able to escape. But being able to release the rhubarb made Suju feel better. The fire spread faster and faster. The old-fashioned floor had begun to catch fire, and Suju had given up the idea of escape. Lying in bed, Suju began to recall his life. From the day he was born, he had been a burden to others. His legs were born disabled and his hematopoietic ability was seriously insufficient. He needed a lot of medical expenses every month and became a burden to his parents from birth. He could not afford his own medical expenses because his father worked alone. In order to take care of herself, my mother could not work full-time, so she had to go out and work part-time. Seeing that the fire had burned the sheets, Suju closed his eyes. He could clearly feel the hot flames, which were devouring him bit by bit. Mom and Dad, I'm leaving. I hope you can have a healthy body and enjoy your old age. Rhubarb, I hope you can find a good home and don't become a stray dog. But when you think about rhubarb being originally a Chinese pastoral dog, I guess no one would accept it as a pet dog. Just as Suju was dying, he suddenly felt his face was wet, as if something was licking him. Suju struggled to open his eyes, but what he saw was Dahuang, whose hair was burnt. Woof, silly dog. Suju, get up quickly, what time is it? If you don't get up, you'll be late for school. Hearing his mother's roar, Suju opened his eyes with difficulty. Looking at the snow-white ceiling, Suju murmured, "Am I in the hospital?" Mother Shu Jing looked at her son and said angrily, "If you don't get up, I will be sent to the hospital because of your anger. Get up quickly, today is the day to wake up." Day of awakening. Suju sat up in a daze, and then instinctively got to the ground. The moment he stood up, Suju's legs couldn't help but tremble. Can I stand up? What's going on? Aren't my legs disabled? Why are you standing up now? Shu Jing couldn't help but sigh when she saw her son with trembling legs. My son's psychological quality has been poor since he was a child. As expected, he is about to wake up and fall off the chain again. You usually go out shouting and shouting, but when the critical moment comes, you'll be done with it, and your legs will shake like crazy. Hurry up and wash up, don't grind around there. Shu Jing left Suju's room with a look of hatred on her face. Suju looked at the unfamiliar environment with a confused look on his face. Have I traveled through time? Then a large piece of memory entered Suju's mind. Various interpersonal relationships, various fragments of life, and an introduction to the world. It took more than 10 minutes for Suju to reluctantly accept these memories. Looking at the familiar yet unfamiliar room, Suju had a smile on his face. I didn't expect that such an outrageous thing would happen to me, Suju. Fortunately, my mother is still the same mother, but her temper is a bit more grumpy. Or maybe the mother in that world also had this temper, but she never showed it in front of her, right? The smile on Suju's face became stronger and stronger. It felt so good to be able to stand up. Shu Jing waited for a long time before she saw her son walking out of the room. Although the legs are no longer trembling, the walking posture is still unnatural. Never mind, this child has been like this since he was a child. He pulls his hips whenever something happens, and it hasn't changed for so many years. I'm about to wake up now, so don't embarrass me. After Suju finished breakfast, accompanied by Shu Jing, he went to Fengcheng No. 3 Beast Control School. Su Qi sat on the back of her mother's pet beast, the mountain ox, digesting the memories in her mind while driving. The world he is in now is not the world before time travel, but a planet called the Beast Controlling World. Here every Dragon Boat Festival, students over the age of 18 have the opportunity to participate in the National Awakening Ceremony. This awakening ceremony is equivalent to the college entrance examination in the previous life, and even attracts more attention than the college entrance examination. If you didn't do well in the college entrance examination in your previous life, you could still do well in society through other means. But in the world of beast control, if you don't awaken well, your future can already be determined. This is definitely a matter of talent only. If the awakened natal beast has high talent potential, major universities will rush to recruit you. And if you are averagely awakened and want to enter your ideal school, you have to go through the so-called freshman competition. This is the only chance for other students to enter their ideal colleges and universities after the first batch of top students are selected. As for those students who didn't wake up well and didn't stand out in the freshman competition, sorry then, ordinary people are your destiny in life. In this society where beast control is the main focus, you can only be at the bottom. If you want to turn over, it depends on whether your descendants are awakened enough. Of course, this prerequisite is that you must be able to marry a wife and have someone willing to give you children. Similarly, if your parents are very supportive, it doesn't matter if your awakening is not good. At the worst, let your parents support you for the rest of your life. As for getting into an ideal beast control school by relying on your parents' relationship, it is absolutely impossible here. But one thing is for sure, if the potential of the natal beast awakened by the parents is high, the one awakened by the next generation will generally not be too bad. When he was almost at school, Suju sorted out the general outline of the world. Suju. When Suju heard someone calling him, he looked up and saw that it was his neighbor Yu Xiaoxuan, whom he had grown up with since childhood. Suju smiled slightly and said, "Xiaoxuan." The two of them greeted each other and got ready. It is said that the better the energy and spirit state when awakening, the higher the potential of the awakened natal beast will be. Of course, many experts say there is no scientific basis for this, but everyone firmly believes in this unspoken rule. Even like the college entrance examination in her previous life, my mother came here wearing a cheongsam today. Needless to say, the meaning. Xu Jing looked at Suju and said, "Don't be nervous. You have been like this since you were a child. You get nervous whenever something happens. This state is very detrimental to awakening. You must remember." Hearing that his mother was talking endlessly, Suju couldn't hide the smile on his face. In her previous life, my mother had never said such words to herself. She had always taken good care of herself, for fear of saying harsh words that would make her think too much. Compared to the mother in her previous life, Suju preferred to see her nagging mother now. At this time, the school bell rang, and all the students waiting for awakening walked into the awakening room. Suju took 2 steps, turned around and waved to his mother, then continued walking forward. When Xu Jing saw her son's walking posture, she couldn't help but sigh and shake her head. Why can't this child get rid of such a problem? Seeing Suju enter the examination room, Xu Jing became nervous. This is a time when the fate of a child's life is decided, and no parent is not nervous. Suju took the study card and found his corresponding awakening room, and then sat down in the posture he remembered. The entire awakening ceremony is not accomplished overnight, and has a complicated set of rituals. Less than 10 minutes later, a broadcast sounded. All students are in their positions. The awakening ceremony will officially begin in 1 minute. When the minute was over, Suju performed the operation step by step according to the ritual in his memory. Suju didn't need to do this ritual deliberately, just because it was already engraved in his bones. The students here do it almost every day, so that there will be no mistakes in the awakening ceremony. After completing the various steps of the awakening ceremony, Suju found that his consciousness entered a void space. He knew that he had successfully awakened, and all he had to do next was to find his own natal beast. Ouch! At this time, Suju heard a tiger roar, and he knew that as long as he followed the sound, he would be able to find his natal beast. Suju's consciousness kept moving forward according to the voice. It seemed that his natal beast should be a tiger pet. He would not be wrong about this. When he was in school, the teacher taught him how to identify the type of pet animal by its sound. As he continued to get closer to the voice, Suju was able to determine that his natal beast was Qingyan tiger, a natal beast with an S talent potential. In the world of beast control, people divide the potential of the natal beast into 9 levels from high to low: SSS, SS, S, A, B, C, D, E, and F. If he could awaken an S-class Qingyan tiger, he could be regarded as a beast master like a genius, and major universities would be vying for him. Woof! Just when Suju was thinking this, a familiar dog bark came. Suju didn't even have to think about it. He was sure that it was his rhubarb, and he would never admit it wrong. Suju looked to the left, where was Qingyan Hu with S-level talent potential. Then he looked to the right, which was the direction from which Dawang's voice came. S-Class Qingyun Tiger on the left vs F-Class Chinese Garden Dog on the right. Su Ju suddenly laughed. The teacher said to drive on the right side. Since you never left me in your previous life, how can I leave you in this life? Not long after Su Ju walked forward, he saw Dawang wagging his tail at him. Even the white hair on his tail had not changed. When Dawang saw Su Ju, he immediately rushed over wagging his tail and threw himself into Su Ju's arms. Su Ju could no longer hold back the tears in his eyes, and looked at the rhubarb in his arms with mixed feelings. Silly dog, I am lucky to have you. Su Ju woke up from the awakening ceremony. When he opened his eyes, he could feel the extra space for beast control in his body. Rhubarb was summoned by him with a wave of his hand. Woof, Dawang still hasn't figured out what happened, and where is this place? Just looking up and seeing Su Ju beside him, he stopped thinking so much. Dawang looked at Su Ju, who stood up and couldn't help being a little dumbfounded. Isn't my master's legs disabled? How come he can stand up now? And where was that place just now? It was so dark that I couldn't see anything. But there, I felt warm all over. Could it be the new kennel prepared by the owner? Su Ju didn't care so much, lowered his head and held Dawang in his arms. At this moment, Su Ju felt extremely happy. He could now stand up and walk freely. Rhubarb comes back to you again, no need to worry about it becoming a stray dog. Life is so wonderful and the sunshine is so beautiful, what else can you not be satisfied with? The only bad thing is that I failed to live up to my parents' expectations. Thinking of this, Su Ju couldn't help but sigh. But if he were asked to choose again, he would still choose the silly dog Dawang instead of the S-level potential Qingyun Tiger. Su Ju touched Dawang's dog head and took Dawang out of the awakening room. Name, Su Ju. Student ID number, 20,240,625. Awaken the natal beast, Chinese pastoral dog. I registered outside as required and wrote down the words Class F Chinese pastoral dog. The staff member glanced at Su Ju and shook his head slightly, but did not say anything harsh. Su Ju walked out with satisfaction, the smile on his face lingering. At this time, more and more people had completed their awakening, and Su Ju followed the crowd and left the examination room. When Xu Jing saw that her son was not left behind immediately, she knew that this awakening was not going well. Mom, I disappoint you. Class F Chinese Garden Dog. Hearing Su Ju's words, Xu Jing's heart skipped a beat. But he didn't show it in front of his son. The thing he was most worried about should have appeared. After touching Su Ju's head, Xu Jing smiled and said, "Okay, let's go home." Su Ju looked at his mother and didn't get angry with him or complain. Xu Jing at this moment is exactly the same as the mother in her previous life, even her micro-expressions are correct. Su Ju followed Xu Jing and sat on the back of the mountain ox, heading towards home. Xu Jing didn't speak much along the way. She waited until she was on the back of the mountain ox and then said, "Son, don't be discouraged. Mom can support you." Su Ju smiled slightly, nodded and said, "Yes." Xu Jing knew that her son's psychology must be at its most vulnerable at this time, so she couldn't give him any stimulation. Are there still fewer people jumping off buildings every year because of poor awakening? He is just such a son, no matter how bad his awakening is, what will happen? It's much better than a child jumping off a building without thinking, right? Just when Su Ju finished speaking, a voice sounded in his ears. Congratulations, host, for successfully awakening the God's reward system. No matter how hard you work, you will reap the rewards. Use sweat to replace your tears. Work hard, young man. System. Su Ju was no stranger to the system. After all, it was the standard configuration for those who were called time travelers. It seems that God still takes good care of me as a time traveler. Just when Su Ju was thinking this, an interface appeared in his mind. Su Ju. Age, 18. Realm, Bronze 1 star. Strength, 6, a little stronger than ordinary people, the standard for ordinary people is 5. Agility, 5. Physique, 5. Spirit, 7. Comprehension, 6. Open acupoints, 0. Kung Fu, 0. Skill, 0. Introduction. Come on young man, you still have a long way to go. The basic attributes, agility and physique of the good trash are the same as those of ordinary people, only the spirit is slightly better. Underneath itself are rhubarb's basic attributes. Rhubarb, Chinese pastoral dog. Master, Suju. Realm, bronze 1 star. Strength, 6 F level. Potential base is 6. Agility, 7. Physique, 6. Spirit, 6. Comprehension, 50. Open acupoints, 309. F level. Base is 6. Exercise, none. Skill 1, passive skill, S level. Ultimate loyalty, Chinese garden dog's natural loyalty is 100 and will never leave its owner. Skill 2, active skill, F level. Bite, the basic skill of the Chinese pastoral dog, can effectively kill the enemy. Skill 3, rebirth from the ashes, RRR level. Passive skill, I don't know why it appears on a dog, but I do understand it, and those with this skill are immune to fire. Introduction, a Chinese pastoral dog who has learned to be reborn from the ashes, rare in the world. When Suju saw rhubarb's basic attributes, he felt that humans were inferior to dogs. The sum of all his attributes is not as high as Dawang's understanding. Furthermore, I opened 0 acupoints by myself, and rhubarb opened 309 acupoints. Isn't this a bit excessive? In the end, who of the Chinese pastoral dogs will be able to rise from the ashes? Is this the life-saving skill of the phoenix? And the RRR level, what level is it? It has never appeared in Suju's inherited memory. However, Suju can understand this skill, and it must be related to the fire in his life. Suju continued to check, and the task column appeared below. Daily task. Task 1, run for 1 hour, reward 1 point of agility. Task 2, 1000 push-ups, reward 1 point of physical fitness. Task 3, punch 1000 times in a row, reward 1 point of strength. Task 4, meditate for 1 hour, reward 1 point of spirit or understanding. Note, complete the above tasks and you will be rewarded with opening an Acupoint 1. When Suju saw such a mission interface, his mouth couldn't help but twitch. Other people's systems are all about winning, ridiculing, or making money, but here it's all about physical work. This is a bit too much. Is my life so miserable? Host, this system is a God-rewarding system. Efforts are directly proportional to performance. Come on, young man, hard work is your only way out. When Suju heard the system say this, he felt that there was nothing wrong with it. This is a system where God rewards those who work hard. How can I do it without working hard? In the system interface, there are not only your own tasks, but also tasks about rhubarb. Task 1, impact 1000 times, reward 1 point of strength. Task 2, run on the S-shaped track 100 times, reward 1 point of agility. Task 3, run back and forth 200 times, reward 1 point of physical fitness. Task 4, meditate for 1 hour, reward 1 point of spirit or understanding. Note, complete the above tasks and you will be rewarded with opening an Acupoint 1. It's similar to my own tasks, it's all physical work. Suju studied it for a while and felt that such a task seemed good. I couldn't even walk in my previous life, and I couldn't understand the joy of training. Now that we have traveled through time, do we want to make up for what we have lost? Thinking of this, the corners of Suju's mouth couldn't help but curl up. Is it a system where God rewards those who work hard? Yes, host, you have to remember that no matter how hard you work, you will gain something. Work hard, young man. Hearing the voice of the God's rewards system again, Suju had made up his mind to live a vigorous life. Mom, I'm going to participate in the freshman competition. When Xu Jing heard her son's words, she turned around and said, "Okay, Mom supports you." Suju smiled slightly and said, "Mom, just go back to our training center. I want to start training now." Xu Jing gave her son a firm look and said, "Well, Mom supports you, let's go right now." Compared to my mother's nagging when I came here, my mother's tone is much softer now. Suju understood why his mother spoke like this, and knew that her mother didn't want to make him sad. But how could I be sad? In this life, my legs are sound and my body is healthy. My mother is still the same mother and my father is still the same father. Even rhubarb is by your side, what else is there to be dissatisfied about? It was a system that was standard for time travelers, and Suju felt that he had to be satisfied. Under the leadership of his mother Shujing, Suju quickly arrived at his home's beast control training center. Both my mother and father have awakened well. After so many years of hard work, they have successfully opened a beast control training center. This beast control training center is also the main source of income for the Suju family. When the mother and son first entered the training center, their father Suyu was standing at the door. Just as he was about to ask his son how he was awakening, he saw his wife shaking her head slightly at him. Suyu immediately understood what his wife meant, and said with a smile on his face, "It's okay, don't worry if you don't wake up well, Dad will support you." Suju smiled slightly and said, "Well, Dad, although I didn't wake up well, I still want to participate in the freshman competition. I want to take Da Huang to train now." Suyu touched Suju's head and said, "Okay, if you have this ambition, Dad will be very happy. Go ahead." Suju nodded and took Dawang into the training center. Suyu saw his son entering and quickly asked, "Jing, how is your son?" Xu Jing's face could no longer remain calm, and she said sadly, "F-class Chinese pastoral dog." Hiss. Hearing his wife's words, Suyu couldn't help but take a breath. "Before, I thought it was not a good awakening, and it was also a C-level or D-level natal beast. Now he didn't expect it to be the most rubbish F-level potential natal beast. How could this not shock him?" Xu Jing warned, "Don't say anything bad about his awakening in front of the child. With our family's conditions, even if his awakening is not good, we can still raise him. Do you hear me?" Suyu said seriously, "Don't worry, I know what to do, alas. It's destined to be awakened, this thing is really hard to say." Xu Jing also had a sad look on her face. She knew that no matter how hard her son worked, the upper limit would be there in the future. Alas, awakening is destined, human life is different. Suju didn't think so much. He firmly believed that there was a God's reward system, and it didn't matter what he awakened. Furthermore, my own rhubarb is not without merit. Didn't I see the system saying that F-class natal beasts only have 6 acupoints open? But my own rhubarb has opened 309 physical acupoints. How can this be an F-level natal beast? Suju came to the training center, pointed at a crash board, and said, "Dawang, hit him." Dawang didn't understand why his master let him hit the wall, but he was naturally loyal and wouldn't think so much. If the master says to hit him, then just hit him yourself. Why do you think so much? Bang! Dawang was bounced back by the impact plate, and his head felt a little dizzy, but he could still bear it. Suju saw this and said to Dawang, "Dawang, keep hitting him, 1,000 times." Dawang looked at Suju puzzledly. He could do it by hitting it, but how many times are these 1,000 times? When Suju saw this slap on the head, he remembered that his Dawang didn't have such a high IQ, and said, "Dawang, just hit him, don't stop, I'll come over to check in a moment." Woof. Dawang stopped thinking so much and quickly hit the impact plate, and then the word, 2, appeared on the display behind the impact plate. In order for the beast masters to better train their pets, there will be such monitors here. Suju started jogging for an hour. Dawang had already worked so hard. What could he do if he, the master, didn't work hard? For the training center, these are the most basic training items, and no one thinks that Suju's behavior is unusual. I'm just a little curious as to why anyone would waste time on an F-class Chinese garden dog. Logically speaking, those who can spend money to train here are C-level and D-level natal beasts. If you train here and achieve results, you can better participate in the freshman competition or other competitions. Suyu and Xu Jing stood high and saw their son training meticulously there. They looked at each other and shook their heads. As the owners of the training center, they know very well what kind of pet beasts are worth training and what kind of pet beasts will not improve no matter how hard they train. This Chinese garden dog is a pet animal that has its upper limit and will never improve no matter how hard it tries. Suyu's eyes were venomous, and he could judge his strength based on the impact of the rhubarb at a glance. This is the power of an ordinary Chinese pastoral dog, and it is also the power of a bronze mirror star. And he knew that even though everyone was just awakening to the bronze mirror star 1 level, pet beasts with good talent would reach the bronze mirror level 2 level within a week. The top batch can even reach bronze 2 stars in just 1 or 2 days. In a month's short training, generally speaking, pet beasts above level B can enter the silver realm. As for an F-level pet like the Chinese garden dog, it is considered good to be able to enter the silver realm within half a year. You may not be able to enter the silver realm even in a year. This is the talent gap. Xu Jing couldn't help but shake her head when she saw her son jogging there. She also knew how her son would feel when someone else's natal beast was promoted in just 1 week. Maybe by that time, my son will be able to understand the meaning of the saying that talent cannot be surpassed, right? Su Ju didn't think much about it and kept jogging there. Is this what running feels like? Very nice. This was Su Ju's first reaction. As for the physical fatigue, he completely ignored it. Before he traveled through time, he couldn't even feel this feeling of exhaustion. Nothing can stop me from yearning for freedom. While Su Ju was running, such singing sounded in his mind unconsciously. This body is much stronger than the one before time travel, and it can completely withstand an hour of jogging. An hour later, the sound of the system sounded in Su Ju's ears. Congratulations on completing the daily task. You will run for 1 hour and be rewarded with 1 point of agility. Su Ju heard this voice and quickly checked his attributes, and sure enough he found that his agility had become 6 points. Suddenly Su Ju quickened his pace, feeling the improvement that 1 point of agility brought to him. He could feel that his body was much lighter and he was running much faster than before. When I came to Dawang and took a look, I saw that the number on the impact plate had reached 900, which was not far from 1000. Rhubarb was already knocked dizzy at this moment, but the loyal one did not receive the owner's order and continued to hit it. This is the advantage of a pet with high loyalty. If it is a pet with average loyalty, it will definitely have gone on strike by this time. Some pet beasts even betray their owners, and this happens several times every year. Dawang, hold on, persistence is victory, you can definitely do it. When Dawang heard his master's words, even though he was exhausted, he increased the intensity of the impact at this moment. 998,999, 1000, good job, Rhubarb. Okay, stop. Just when Su Ju finished saying this, the system's voice sounded in his ears. Congratulations to your pet Rhubarb for successfully completing 1000 impacts, gaining a little strength, and successfully mastering the impact skill. When Su Ju heard this, he was slightly stunned. Dawang actually understood the skill. In memory, it was not easy for the pet beast to understand the skill. Su Ju quickly checked Rhubarb's attribute panel, and sure enough he found an impact skill in it. Although it was only an F-level skill, Su Ju was already satisfied. He knew that when the pet beast was at a low level, each additional skill he mastered would give him 1 more point of combat power. Since I want to participate in the freshman competition, I will definitely need Dawang's help. Well done Rhubarb, you are the best. Woof. For Rhubarb, nothing can make it happier than getting approval from its owner. Su Ju knelt down and touched Dawang's head, and said, Dawang, our next training will be very hard, you have to hold on. Woof. No matter whether Rhubarb is bitter or not, for it, the master's orders are more important than anything else. Su Ju stood up and said, let's go, let's start the 200-time roundabout run of Dawang, run, run, run. Woof woof woof. Su Yu and Xu Jing stood high up, quietly watching their son training with the pet beast. Although they knew that these were useless efforts, the two of them had a tacit understanding and no one bothered Su Ju. In their opinion, the son's psychology must be fragile at this time. After a period of time, the son himself will understand that all his efforts are in vain. Su Ju kept running around the training center with Dawang. One task after another was completed by Su Ju and Dawang. Sweat had already wetted Su Ju's clothes, but Su Ju didn't mean to complain about being tired. He enjoyed the feeling of being soaked in sweat. For him, this was an unprecedented enjoyment. When the last task was completed, the system's voice sounded in Su Ju's ears again. Congratulations to you and your pet for completing today's daily mission, and you will be rewarded with 1 physical orifice. As he finished saying this, Su Ju felt a warmth on his right foot, and then a physical acupoint was opened. Hiss. A sharp pain came, and this feeling of forcibly opening the acupoints made Su Ju frown slightly. Fortunately, this feeling passed quickly, and Suju felt that his whole body became warm instantly. And he could clearly sense the soul power floating in the air, which was continuously supplying his soul sea along the Yongquan point. This soul sea is generated after awakening, and is mainly used to summon pet beasts and release skills. It's just that he has just awakened and has not learned any skills at all. He can only use them to summon pet beasts. But now, because the Yongquan point has been opened, it can automatically absorb the soul power in the air. According to the introduction in my memory, there is a practice of cultivation in this world. The techniques circulated on the market are generally 9-aperture cultivation techniques, and higher-level techniques can only be taught in colleges and universities. Now I have only opened an Acupoint, and I am still far from practicing the technique. The absorption of soul power by the Yongquan point is just a normal reaction after the Acupoint is opened, and the soul power absorbed is also completely different from the skill. According to the records in my memory, opening the Acupoint is not a simple matter. It requires fixing the Acupoint, nourishing it, and finally opening the Acupoint. Determining the Acupoints is the most difficult part here. No one else can help you. You can only determine the Acupoints yourself. This step alone allows people with poor qualifications to spend weeks or even months determining the location of the Acupoints to be opened. Of course, it would be simpler if you use a positioning pill, but it is absolutely impossible to accurately locate it all at once. Then she will be pregnant for a while, and finally work hard to open the acupuncture points. Many people only open 1 or 2 acupoints before the freshman competition. Those who can open more than 3 acupoints can already be called top students. As for those who can open 5 acupoints, they can be called geniuses. As for those who can open 9 acupoints to learn skills, they are already legendary monsters. But now that he has just awakened and opened an acupoint, he is already a monster among monsters. Woof! Hearing Rhubarb's cry, Suju quickly checked the properties of rhubarb and found that rhubarb had awakened as many as 310 acupoints. Suju, who was still a little complacent at first, was once again hit by Dawang. He knows that rhubarb now has 310 acupoints open, and even if there is no exercise method, the cultivation speed will definitely not be slowed down. He knelt down and touched Dawang's dog's head, and said, "Dawang, let's go and eat." Woof! When he heard that there was something to eat, Dawang called out again. Suju looked at the time and saw that it was already 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then happily found his mother with rhubarb. "Mom, I'm hungry." Shu Jing agreed, brought the food to Suju, and prepared a portion for Da Huang. "Son, are you tired? These are nutritious meals that can replenish your daily consumption." Suju listened to his mother's nagging while eating the food on the table. Seeing Suju eating so deliciously, Shu Jing finally felt relieved. It doesn't matter if the awakening is not good, but I am afraid that the child will not be able to bear the blow and go to extremes. Shu Jing turned her head and looked at her son's natal animal. At this moment, the rhubarb juice was flowing out, but she had no intention of eating it. Shu Jing carefully looked at the nutritious meal prepared for rhubarb. There is nothing wrong with it. They are all canine favorite nutritious meals. And judging from the meaning of rhubarb, I also really want to eat the nutritious meal on the table, otherwise my saliva would not flow so much. But even though he was so greedy, Rhubarb still had no intention of eating a nutritious meal. "Rhubarb, it's time to eat." "Woof," Dawang yelled, first looking at Shu Jing, and then at Suju. Suju turned around and saw Dawang's appearance, and knew what was going on. In the world of beast control, pet animals have the same status as humans, so there is no rule that prohibits pet animals from being served on the dining table. But the world before the time travel was different. For the Chinese garden dog, there was never the concept of sharing the same table with its owner. This is a gene that has been engraved in the bones of Chinese pastoral dogs for thousands of years. Suju smiled slightly, took the dinner plate off the table, and said, "Dawang, this will be your dog bowl from now on, eat it." After hearing that this was his dog bowl, Rhubarb happily started eating it. Shu Jing saw this scene in her eyes and couldn't help but marveled that this Chinese pastoral dog actually had such qualities. And for his absolute loyalty to Suju, even Shu Jing had to give Dawang a thumbs up after watching it. Shu Jing watched today's training and saw that Dawang could faithfully execute every order given to his son. It seems that this Chinese pastoral dog is not without merit, but its potential is low. What a pity. Suju didn't feel any pity and quickly finished the food on the plate. Rhubarb ate faster, and Suju finished the nutritious meal in the dog bowl one step ahead of schedule. Suju looked at the time, it was already past 6 o'clock. Suju sensed his physical condition and felt that he had almost recovered. Dawang, let's continue training. Woof. Dawang doesn't have that much thought. Didn't he see that his master was training? Then shouldn't he train more, and train even harder? There are no more daily tasks at this moment, but Suju already likes this feeling of sweating. Unlike others, Suju had never run or jumped so wantonly. This feeling is a novel experience for him. Seeing that her son still wanted to train, Xu Jinggang wanted to say something but finally gave up. Maybe this is also a way of release. As long as your son is happy, just train. Su Yu walked in at this time and saw Suju going out for training. He looked worried and said, "Isn't my son possessed by a demon?" "What are you talking about? Since my son is going to train, let him train. As long as he is happy, that is more important than anything else." Su Yu sighed and said, "Yu Junchi came just now, and Xiaoshuan awakened the A-level violent ape." When Xu Jing heard this, she quickly said, "Don't mention this in front of your son, I'm afraid Xiaoju won't be able to bear it." Su Yu sighed and said, "Oh, Jing, Xiaoju will have to face this kind of thing sooner or later, it is unavoidable." How could Xu Jing not understand what Su Yu said? She just didn't want her son to face all this prematurely. Su Yu continued, "Today, thanks to my connections, as long as my son does not perform too badly in the freshman competition, he will be admitted to Fengcheng Yusho Vocational and Technical School." Xu Jing knew what kind of school this was. This was not a professional beast control school at all. It is a vocational technical secondary school, and the skills learned are all related to the service of beast masters. He is not even close to those powerful beast masters. He only learns techniques such as beautifying the pet beasts, making nutritious meals for the pet beasts, and making clothes for the pet beasts. It's not that this is bad, but it is completely incomparable with the alchemy, weapon refining, formations, pet beast breeding, etc. taught in colleges and universities. But with the potential of my son's Chinese pastoral dog, it seems that it is already good to be able to attend such a school. Okay, I have no objection, but I still have to wait until the freshman competition is over before discussing this matter, otherwise I'm afraid my son won't be able to accept it. Su Yu nodded and said, "Don't worry, I know how to do this kind of thing. In fact, it's not bad to learn a skill. Although we can't afford to raise him, we still want him to go out and have a try." Xu Jing didn't continue after hearing this. She had the same idea in her heart. Su Ju brought Dawang to the training ground again. At this time, there were already many customers in the training ground. Just as he was about to walk forward, he saw Yu Xiaoshuan whom he had seen in the examination room before. Yu Xiaoshuan is still feeling excited at this moment. After all, the A-level violent ape has heralded a bright future for her. Seeing Su Ju coming down from upstairs, he said, "Xiao Ju, I have awakened an A-level violent ape. How is your awakening going?" Su Ju smiled slightly, raised the rhubarb, and said, "Look, this is my natal animal, the F-class Chinese pastoral dog." Yu Xiaoshuan realized that she had asked a very stupid question, and her face was full of embarrassment. Su Ju didn't pay attention. Although this girl and her predecessor were not a couple in his memory, they had a very good relationship. In pre-time travel terms, it should be called friendship is full, but lovers are not yet there. But Su Ju is not his predecessor, and now Yu Xiaoshuan is just someone with a relatively deep memory. "Xiaoshuan, are you coming to train too?" Yu Xiaoshuan nodded and said, "Well, although I don't have to participate in the freshman competition, I still want to take advantage of this time to try to improve myself." Su Ju waved his fist and said, "Well, you were right, come on, try to enter the silver realm as soon as possible." Yu Xiaoshuan nodded and continued, "Then thank you for your kind words." Su Ju smiled slightly, waved his hand and said, "Then I won't disturb you anymore. I'm going to train with Dawang too. Dawang, let's go." "Woof," Dawang yelled, followed closely behind Su Ju, and walked towards the training ground. Yu Xiaoshuan looked at Su Ju's leaving figure and said nothing for a long time. At this time, her mother came behind her and said, Xiaoxuan, don't look at it. From now on, you will be people in two worlds. Yu Xiaoxuan did not refute her mother's words. She knew that her mother was right. Looking at Su Juyuan's retreating figure, he murmured, well, it's just a pity. Mother patted Yu Xiaoxuan's shoulder and said, it's indeed a pity. Even if Xiao Ju's awakening is not good, it would still be a C-level natal beast. Yu Xiaoxuan shook her head, wanting to say that C-class natal beasts were also trash, but she didn't say it out loud after all. Su Ju came to the training ground and said to Dawang, Dawang, hit it. Dawang got Su Ju's order and started hitting again without hesitation. Su Ju started running. Different from the previous jogging, this time he sprinted with all his strength. Since the Yongquan point was opened, Su Ju's speed increased a lot. Even if I sprint with all my strength, I don't feel too tired. 5 minutes passed, and Su Ju felt that his physical strength was declining rapidly, but he still persisted. When 10 minutes were up, his speed was only 70% of his peak speed, and sweat had already wet his cheeks. Su Ju still didn't give up. He wanted to see where his limit was. At 15 minutes, Su Ju's speed slowed down a lot again, and now he was only half of what he was at his peak. At this moment, he could already clearly feel the soreness in his muscles, but he still did not give up and persisted. He wanted to see what it would be like when he couldn't run anymore. There are elixirs to restore the body here, so there is no need to worry about the sequelae of excessive exercise. Xu Jing and Su Yu were not in a good mood when they saw their son training so hard. After all, running the Beast Control Training Center for so long, no one knew better than them whether what Su Ju was doing was in vain. At first, it was okay for the two of them to see their son sprinting with all his strength, but after 5 minutes passed, their expressions became different. As professionals, the two of them knew very well that it was impossible for a normal person who had just awakened to sprint at full strength for 5 minutes and maintain this speed. And after 10 minutes passed, Su Yu turned around and looked at Xu Jing in disbelief. This can't be true, right? Xu Jing knew exactly what her husband was talking about, but she also looked puzzled. Not sure, let's have a look again. After 15 minutes passed, the two of them were already sure that their son had opened a physical acupoint. Moreover, the two of them were certain that this acupoint was located in the foot, otherwise it would not have been possible for their son to persist for so long. Hiss. When they thought of this possibility, both of them couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. This is incredible. I have been running the Beast Control Training Center for so long and I have never encountered anything like this. Su Ju continued to persevere on the treadmill. 20 minutes had passed and his speed was only 1/3 of his peak speed. At this time, the Yongquan point on his right foot was constantly absorbing the free soul power around him, replenishing Su Ju's energy. Although the speed of absorption is not fast, the amount absorbed is not large. But it is undeniable that it is this little bit of recovery that allows Su Ju to persist longer. By the time 25 minutes passed, Su Ju's speed had changed to jogging, but he still chose to persist. The soreness coming from the muscles is really wonderful. Is this the feeling of not being able to run? Su Ju wanted this feeling to last longer. Unlike other people's beliefs, he enjoyed this feeling. By the time 30 minutes passed, Su Ju's running posture was seriously out of shape, but he was still running. It was at this time that the system's voice sounded in Su Ju's ears again. Dear host, you can understand the essence of hard work and reward. This system is very satisfied. We hereby commend you for opening the Yongquan point on your left foot and give you 1 Yongquan point opening method. As the words fell, Su Ju felt bursts of sharp pain from the Yongquan point on his left foot. It is exactly the same as when the Yongquan point on the right foot was opened before, it was also opened violently. Fortunately, this time was very short. It only took a few seconds for Su Ju to recover. Su Yu and his wife saw the painful expression on their son's face and ran over quickly. Son, the days are still long, we don't need to torture ourselves like this. Su Ju had already recovered at this time. When he saw his mother who cared about him, he smiled and said, Mom, I'm fine, I just have cramps. Look if you don't believe me. The Yongquan points on both feet were all opened, which increased Su Ju's soul power recovery a lot, and the energy consumed also recovered a little during this period. Xu Jing was relieved when she saw her son jumping twice in front of her. Su Yu asked, Xiaoju, tell dad if you have opened your acupoints. When Su Ju saw that his father had asked this question, he did not hide it and said, well, it's turned on. What's turned on is the Yongquan point. Su Yu continued to ask, Xiaoju, is it the left foot or the right foot that is turned on? Su Ju chuckled and said a little proudly, the one on my right foot was turned on before, but when I got cramped just now, the one on my left foot was also turned on. Hiss. After hearing their son's words, the couple looked at Su Ju in shock. On the first day of awakening, you have never heard of the opening of 2 acupoints, let alone seen them. Those monsters in the rumors also open an acupuncture point in 3 or 4 days. Have you never heard of such outrageous things as opening 2 acupuncture points in 1 day? What exactly is going on with my son? Does he have a constitution that is prone to opening acupuncture points? The couple looked around and realized that this was not the place to talk, so they quickly asked their son to go upstairs to talk. Just as Su Ju was about to leave, he heard the sound of the system coming to his ears again. Congratulations to the host, your pet beast rhubarb has been successfully trained, the reward is strength 3, and the impact skill proficiency is activated. Hearing this sound, Su Ju quickly came to the side of Dawang and saw that Dawang was still banging there stupidly. At this time, the number on the impact plate has changed to 2024, which shows that the frequency of rhubarb's impact has increased a lot this time. After feeling the state of rhubarb through the spiritual contract, he also stopped. Su Ju still understands the principle that too much is not enough, and he can still do meditation tasks when he returns home. Before, I only took rhubarb and meditated for half an hour, which made me feel like I had slept for a few hours. Why sleep after this? Isn't it delicious to meditate? Arriving at the lounge upstairs, Su Yu asked impatiently, Xiaoju, what on earth is going on with you? Su Ju looked confused, not sure what his father was talking about. Dad, what are you talking about? What's wrong with me? Su Yu quickly said, what else can there be? It's so abnormal for you to open 2 acupoints this day. Even the monsters are not as monster as you. Su Ju chuckled and said, Dad, I'm worried. As soon as I finished saying this, my mother slapped me in the face and said, talk to your dad. Ah, Su Ju looked depressed. Isn't it okay to tell the truth these days? Your son is indeed pregnant, otherwise how could he open his acupoints so quickly? At this moment, Su Ju remembered that the heavenly rewards system had rewarded him with the Yongquan point opening method. Just when he thought of this Yongquan acupoint opening method, the method on how to open the Yongquan acupoint appeared in Su Ju's mind. The God's reward system is very violent, and the method of opening Yongquan point was stuffed into Su Ju's mind in an instant. Hiss. Su Ju felt a sharp pain in his head, and then sighed, why should he be so violent? It's like this every time. Seeing that Su Ju hadn't spoken for a long time and was still grinning, my mother raised her head again and said, speak carefully and don't act weird. Ah, Su Ju wanted to say that he was wrong. Your son was really not acting weird, but was forced to use violence and knowledge. But I thought so I gave the 2 people an explanation. Mom, I don't know either. I just feel the Yongquan point getting warm when I run. When I run to the point of exhaustion, the Yongquan point opens on its own. Impossible. As a senior beast master training coach, Su Yu knows a lot about how to open the physical acupoints. If it were really that simple to open the physical acupoints, countless people wouldn't have such a hard time opening the acupoints. Su Ju quickly explained. Dad, it's true, but everyone's body constitution is different, and the speed at which acupoints are opened is also different. A person like your son must be a genius among geniuses. It will definitely not be so easy for ordinary people to open up. Seeing Su Ju being such a jerk, Su Yu smiled and said, I need you to teach me how to open the Yongquan point. It cannot be opened by running. Su Ju now has the reward given by the God's rewards system in his mind, and knows 18 ways to open the Yongquan point. I found a cultivation method that is most suitable for civilians and said, Dad, actually running is also very particular. It requires not only running, but also perseverance. Perseverance. Su Ju nodded and said, Dad, you must have seen how I run before, right? Su Yu nodded and said, yeah. Then what? Sprint with all your strength and run non-stop. Use as much strength as you have. If you can run non-stop for 30 minutes, 3 times a day, even if you can't open the Yongquan point in 1 day, no matter how stupid you are, you can open it in 5 days. Got it. Haha. Su Yu smiled, but didn't take it seriously. He knew that opening the Yongquan point was definitely not that simple. Seeing that his father didn't believe it, Su Ju said, "Dad, don't believe it. Isn't this a ready-made example?" Thinking about his son, Su Yu really had no way to refute. Su Yu looked at his son with some confusion and said, "Is it really useful? You didn't lie to me." Su Ju patted his chest. "That means your son's example is here, what do you still don't believe?" Shu Jing said from the side, "My Yongquan point has not been opened yet. Why don't we try Xiaoju's method? Maybe it will work." Su Yu heard his wife's words and said, "Well, you are right. My Yongquan point has not been opened yet. Why don't I give it a try according to the method my son said? It's just that this time today is no longer suitable, so we can only wait until tomorrow." Among the information Su Ju received, there were 18 ways to open the Yongquan point. This method of running to open acupoints can be said to be the most suitable method for civilians. Even if there is no training center, you can still open acupoints in the wild by running non-stop. Of course, accidents are easy to occur when running like this in the wild, and it is far less safe than being supervised in a training center. Su Ju came up with this method to attract business for his beast control training center. He believed that with such a training method, his business would definitely be more prosperous. It was getting dark at this time, and Su Ju didn't go home. There was a lounge specially prepared for guests. Mom and Dad have no objection to this. After all, this is their home for them. After Su Ju returned to the lounge, he followed the method taught by the school and began to enter a meditative state. Da Wang saw Su Ju sitting cross-legged and remembered the method his master had taught him through the spiritual contract. He also followed suit and entered a meditative state according to the method Su Ju taught him. Su Ju meditated continuously throughout the night. Different from usual sleeping and dreaming, this meditation involves visualizing yourself in your mind and constantly worshipping yourself. That's right, the meditation here is not to visualize a certain god, but to visualize the beast master himself, and in this way make one's spirit stronger. 5 o'clock the next morning. Su Ju, who was meditating, heard the system sound coming from his ears. This system has felt the efforts of the host and triggered the hidden benefits of the Tiandao rewarding system, rewarding comprehension 3 and spirit 3. I hope the host will continue to work hard. Only through continuous efforts can we improve ourselves. Today's tasks have been refreshed. Please check it yourself. Su Ju woke up from meditation and took a look at the time. It was already 5 o'clock the next morning. Then I felt my condition and found that except for some numbness in my legs, I didn't feel any discomfort. He stood up and looked at Da Wang, who had fallen asleep long ago. Su Ju didn't say anything. Sensing movement outside, Da Wang opened his eyes immediately and woke up from his sleep. Su Ju saw Da Huang waking up and said, "Da Huang, let's go, a new day has begun, we must continue to work hard." Woof. After hearing Da Wang's response, Su Ju stepped out of the lounge and came to the canteen here. The staff here naturally knew the young boss, and when they saw Su Ju coming, they smiled and said hello. "Hey, Xiaoju woke up so early." Su Ju is also familiar with the staff here. He often comes here to play. "Aunt Huang, aren't you awakening? I just want to get up early so that I can train longer." A trace of regret flashed across Aunt Huang's eyes. It was such a pity that such a diligent young man had awakened an F-level natal beast. He held the nutritious breakfast that Aunt Huang served for himself, and then took the dog bowl and served a portion to Da Wang. Aunt Huang also looked at Da Wang with some curiosity. There are not many such pet beasts nowadays. It's not that she has any objection to people and pets eating at the same table. She knows that eating at the same table is an opportunity to cultivate feelings. Not only in the training center, but also in major universities, no one would feel weird about someone doting on their deskmate. But this was the first time she had had close contact with a pet animal like Da Wang. One person and one pet quickly finished the food and started today's training task. The foods provided here are all high-energy foods, which are digested quickly, and you don't have to worry about strenuous exercise after meals. Xiaoju, why don't you sleep a little longer? Suju looked up and saw his mother running hard there, obviously trying the method he mentioned yesterday. Well, get up early and train early. The potential of my awakened natal beast is not high, so naturally I have to learn how to fly first. Hearing her son's sensible words, Shu Jing couldn't help but sigh. Her son's life was too miserable. Suju saw his mother and father running at full speed and had no intention of disturbing them. Opening the task panel, Suju took a look and it was almost the same as yesterday, except that the amount of tasks was heavier. But for Suju, he needs to practice more anyway, whether it is aggravated or not is not that important. As for rewards, completing 4 tasks will still reward you with a physical acupoint. Opening the 3 orifices in 2 days, this qualification is definitely unparalleled, right? Rhubarb, hit it. Dawang looked at the impact plate on the opposite side and started a new day of training. Although it doesn't know why the owner lets it hit a board, but what can it do? Whatever the owner says is fine. Suju saw the impact proficiency on Dawang's attribute panel. F-level skills, impact, proficiency 1/100. Suju observed for a while and found that every time Rhubarb hit it 100 times, his proficiency would increase a little. This improvement is not very fast, but Suju is very satisfied. Compared with other Chinese pastoral dogs, Rhubarb is already too lucky. After Suju watched for a while, he also entered the training. Compared to yesterday, there were many more people in the training center today. After all, a new batch of awakened people have appeared. For the freshman competition, many awakened people will apply for membership in the training center. Everyone just woke up yesterday, and many people would celebrate and then participate in the special training class held at the training center. Today is the first day of the special training class, and the coaches are systematically guiding these awakened ones. Suju did not train with these people. Suju, who had grown up here since he was a child, was very familiar with the training equipment here and did not need the guidance of a coach at all. Today's daily task is still running. It is still an all-out sprint, but it is different from yesterday's all-out sprint. Today's mission has an introduction. You need to accelerate at full speed for 5 minutes, then enter jogging to accumulate energy, and then accelerate at full speed for 5 minutes, a total of half an hour. If you repeat this training 5 times, the God's reward system will reward you with 2 points of agility. Suju started sprinting with all his strength according to the instructions in the mission, jogging to accumulate energy, and sprinting with all his strength. In this continuous cycle of movements, Suju could feel the opening of the Yongquan points on his feet, how much it improved him. If it were me yesterday, I would never be able to do this with ease. But now after 5 minutes of full acceleration, after 5 minutes of energy storage, it is fully capable of entering full acceleration again. The system requires 5 times for half an hour each time, but Suju insists on doing this for 2.5 hours, constantly cycling through such actions. When this task was completed, Suju's clothes were wet with sweat again. After stepping off the treadmill, Suju remembered the rhubarb that kept hitting him there. I walked over and saw that Dawang had been hit more than 6,000 times, and his head was a little swollen. Suju quickly stopped the dizzy Dawang and let him rest for a while. Hang on, Dawang, we must complete 10,000 impacts today, so that your impact will be upgraded to E level. Woof. Dawang won't think so much, let alone complain. If the owner asks him to hit it, then he will hit it himself. Suju took rhubarb to start today's meditation, using this period of meditation to recover the consumed soul power. At this time, the benefits of enlightenment can be reflected, which are also 1-star bronze mirrors. It took Suju half an hour to recover all his soul power, while the soul power consumed by Dawang was replenished in just a few minutes. 311 vs 2, there is no way to compare. Suju recovered from meditation and became more energetic again. He patted Dawang on the side and said, "Let's go, Dawang, let's continue practicing collision." Woof. Suju asked Dawang to only practice hitting in the morning and other training in the afternoon. I started doing push-ups myself. I still did 1,000 push-ups yesterday, but I have increased it to 3,000 today. It's just that the amount of tasks has increased, but the rewards have not. Suju also complained about the God of Rewards for Qin system, but when he reached 1,000, he knew why God of Rewards for Qin did what he did. Yesterday, my strength was still 6, which was only a little stronger than ordinary people. But today my strength has dropped to 8 points. Doing 1,000 push-ups will not be effective at all. It was 3,000 push-ups. Suju finished it in less than an hour, and the same strength increased by 1 point again. After finishing all this, Suju saw that he still had some time and a lot of physical strength. It didn't end because of the system prompts, but continued to do push-ups. When he completed 6,000 push-ups, the voice of the God rewarding system rang in his ears again. Host, congratulations, you have successfully mastered the essence of the God's reward system. You have replaced tears with sweat. Special reward of strength 2. Suju felt that the strength in his body increased instantly. His original push-up movements were somewhat deformed, but now they were back to normal again. Is this the benefit of increased strength? Suju felt it for a while, then ended the push-up training and started other training. Suyu followed the method his son said and started running with all his strength to see if the method his son said was effective. Although he knew very well that his son's method was almost impossible to copy. But so what if it succeeds? As the owner of a beast control training center, he knows very well what kind of benefits it will bring to the training center if this method is true. Unlike Suju, who was exhausted after running all out for half an hour, Suyu only experienced the feeling of exhaustion after running all out for 3 hours. If the average person is under normal circumstances, they will definitely end the training. After all, there is no point in running anymore. But thinking of his son's training yesterday, Suyu started to keep running. Next was the time to test his perseverance and faith. 10 minutes passed, and Suyu felt that he might not be able to hold on anymore, but he still didn't stop. The staff next to me didn't know what kind of training method the boss was using. What kind of training is this? It's more like asking for abuse. He could feel that the boss's soul power had been squandered at this time, and his current running was all supported by perseverance. Another 10 minutes passed, and Suyu felt that he really couldn't run anymore, but when he thought of his son's words, he still didn't stop running. At this time, his posture had been severely deformed, and it could not be called running at all. He looked as embarrassed as possible. But at this time, Suyu still didn't stop and continued to persist. He was ready to run until his body could no longer run. Boss, is it almost done? Suyu ignored the staff and kept running there, even though his posture was severely deformed. Another 5 minutes passed, and Suyu finally couldn't run anymore. He knew that he really couldn't run this time. The last bit of strength in his body was drained by himself. But so what? Suyu, who refused to admit defeat, had changed from running to walking. Every step he took at this moment was a challenge for Suyu, but this challenge did not stop Suyu. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, keep moving forward. The staff didn't understand how the boss was stimulated and why he would use this method to punish himself. Could it be that he was angry with the boss's wife? Otherwise, why would the boss's wife be running as fast as she could? When I think of this possibility, I can't help but think of Suju's awakening of an F-class Chinese garden dog yesterday. If it's because of this, it's really not necessary. With the boss's family background, even if he could raise Suju for a lifetime, he wouldn't be able to afford it. Why are you angry with the landlady because of this matter? At the end, Suyu couldn't walk anymore and felt like 2 mountains were tied to his legs. At this moment, an unknown energy came, and his right foot suddenly felt warm, and then the Yongquan point was instantly opened. Hiss. Suyu's eyes were full of disbelief. Is this training method real? After the Yongquan point was opened, the trace of soul power it brought could explain everything. Originally, he had 58 acupoints opened throughout his body, but now he has 1 more acupoint, and his soul power is restored a little faster than before. Just this little bit of soul power can already restore Suyu's soul power faster than it is consumed. But how is this possible? Whoever opens the acupoint does not first locate the acupoint, then after a period of pregnancy and nourishment, and finally attack the acupoint with all his soul power. But even this is not necessarily able to open this acupoint. If it fails once, it will have to continue to be pregnant and nursed for a period of time, and then it will be attacked again when it feels almost ready. Anyone who opens acupuncture points does not always open them through constant impact. How can there be such an opening method? The staff saw that the boss looked like he had seen a ghost and did not know what the boss had experienced. What's more, the boss could no longer walk, but now he can walk normally, and his posture is getting more and more normal. After Su Yu experienced the previous shock, he felt the soul power constantly coming from Acupoint, and the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up slightly. He knew how much shock this method of enlightenment would bring to the world of beast control if spread. But as soon as this idea came up, it was rejected by Su Yu. This method is too simple, and it is not conducive to your own beast control training center. At this moment, a whole set of training plans appeared in Su Yu's mind, and the quality of the profiteer was most vividly reflected here. Su Yu got off the treadmill, patted the staff on the shoulder and said, "Well, thank you for your hard work, Xiao Zhang, go and do your work, I'm fine here." "Yes, boss." Su Yu walked to his office, and as he walked, he started to figure out how to maximize his profits. Of course, before that, several more experiments must be done, which can also confirm Su Ju's method from many aspects. Compared to Su Yu, who turned it on at once, Xu Jing was not so lucky. "I ran for 4 hours, but was exhausted and had no effect. This unlucky boy actually dared to lie to me. I will see how I will deal with you when I get home." Xu Jing dragged her tired body and prepared to settle accounts with her son, but she saw Su Yu walking over with a smile. Seeing his wife's tired look, Su Yu said, "How's it going? Is it turned on?" Xu Jing shook her head and said, "This unlucky boy dared to lie to me. I must cut off his food today." Su Yu laughed and said, "Jing, my son said, 3 times a day, if you persist for a few more days, it will eventually turn on." Cut. Xu Jing was noncommittal, rolled her eyes at Su Yu, and said, "I asked you to say this as if you were turned on." Su Yu looked happy and said, "Well, I have indeed turned it on." "What, did you turn it on?" Xu Jing looked at her husband in disbelief and continued to confirm, "Are you really turned on?" Su Yu was indeed in a good mood at the moment and said, "Well, it's really opened. Although there is only one Yongquan point on the right foot, it at least proves that this method is feasible." Hearing what Su Yu said, Xu Jing was no longer calm and asked quickly, "Quick, tell me, what is the activation process like?" Su Yu naturally had no reservations about him and told him everything he had experienced before. After hearing this, Xu Jing felt that she might really be a little behind, not as hard as Su Yu squeezed her. "If I had been cruel at that time, maybe the Yongquan point would be open now." Su Yu continued, "My son's method is really amazing. There is no need to fix the acupoints, it just opens automatically on its own without any side effects." Hearing what her husband said, Xu Jing glanced at no one next to her and continued, "So." After being married for so many years, Su Yu naturally knew what his wife was talking about. He nodded and continued, "Everything is in the experimental stage now. I think we need to try more before we can officially launch a training class." "Well, you are right. If I turn it on here, it will prove that this method is indeed effective." Su Yu nodded and said, "Well, I think so too, but before that, I still need to test it a few more times to be sure." After hearing this, Xu Jing frowned and said, "I'm afraid this is inappropriate. If so, wouldn't such an unskilled training method be leaked out?" "Ha ha ha." Su Yu looked like a profiteer and said, "Jing, your worries are completely unnecessary. Our training method is not just running, but also a herbal diet developed by a senior herbalist. Otherwise, just by running, do you think this can you enlighten me?" "Ah." Xu Jing gave Su Yu a thoughtful look and said with appreciation, "Well, hubby, you still have a way." Ha ha ha. Su Yu supported Xu Jing and walked to the lounge. As he walked, he said, "Of course, this premise must prove that this method can be replicated and does not happen by chance." "Well, that's what I mean too. How much do you think our set meal should cost?" Su Yu thought for a moment and said, "Ask my son." "Ask your son." Xu Jing didn't quite understand what Su Yu meant. Is it too early for her son to get involved in this? Su Yu sighed and said, "It's not like you don't know what's going on with my son now. What I mean is that after he graduates, he will take over our training center. It is necessary for him to participate more in management now." Hearing Su Yu's explanation, Xu Jing nodded, fully agreeing with what Su Yu said. Su Ju was still training hard, and his clothes were wet with sweat again. Su Ju completed all today's tasks in one morning, and the sound of the system rang in his ears again. Congratulations on completing all today's tasks, special reward for opening the Taishi point on your right foot. As the words fell, the familiar sharp pain came again. Fortunately, Su Ju was mentally prepared. A few seconds passed quickly, and Su Ju felt that the consumed soul power was being replenished at a faster pace. At the same time, the Taishi point on the right foot is absorbing the surrounding free energy little by little. Su Ju could clearly feel that the speed of his soul power recovery had increased a lot. Just when Su Ju realized the wonderful effect of opening Taishi point, the sound of the system sounded in his ears again. Congratulations to your pet rhubarb. After continuous impact training, his proficiency has been reached and F-level impact has been successfully promoted to E-level impact. Have Dawang's skills also been upgraded? Su Ju couldn't help but raise the corner of his mouth, although in his memory, there was no difference between an F-class impact and an E-class impact. But so what, do I care about these differences now? What I care about is that after hard training, this impact can continuously improve the quality of skills. This is the most important thing, although other pet beasts can also improve their skill quality through training. But how can I feel as clear as myself, who can clearly formulate an upgrade plan for the pet beast? Su Ju, I didn't expect to see you here. Su Ju looked up and saw that it was Ji Yufeng from the previous class. He must be his former junior. Well, yes, what a coincidence. Su Ju smiled. Awakening is a mirror, it is clear who is good and who is bad. This kid used to call me Brother Ju, but now he calls him by his first name. Ji Yufeng looked at Su Ju with some pride and said, Su Ju, I heard that the one you awakened is an F-level Chinese pastoral dog. Is it true? Su Ju didn't mean to avoid it, and said openly, well, you were right, look, this is my rhubarb, say hello. Woof. Ji Yufeng pretended to be sorry and shook his head, saying, Tisk, what a pity, alas. Su Ju didn't care and said, it's no shame. I'm very satisfied with the rhubarb. Let's go, rhubarb, let's go eat. After saying that, he said to Ji Yufeng, then you go and train, I won't disturb you. Ji Yufeng nodded and said, yes. By the way, the one I awakened is a B-level flame dog. Su Ju looked back at him and said calmly, well, that's pretty good. At this time, Yu Xiaoxuan came over, looked at the two people and said, Feng, Xiao Ju, you are all here. Ji Yufeng looked at Yu Xiaoxuan and said, Xiaoxuan, can you give me a chance? You see, what I awakened is a B-level flame dog. Hearing Ji Yufeng's words, Yu Xiaoxuan's face suddenly turned ugly. She looked at Su Ju and then at Ji Yufeng. Ji Yufeng, you have gone too far. I have no interest in you. You should give up. Ji Yufeng didn't want to give up, and said, Xiaoxuan, what I awakened is also a B-level flame dog. It is better than someone's F-level Chinese pastoral dog. Yu Xiaoxuan's face was so cold that it could freeze someone to death. She snorted and said, Xiao Ju, ignore him, let's go eat. Su Ju smiled slightly, looked back at Ji Yufeng, and said, they are all dogs, there is no difference. They are just one Chinese pastoral dog and the other is a licking dog. Ji Yufeng looked at Su Ju with anger on his face and said, Su Ju, do you think you are still the same Su Ju you were before? As an F-class natal beast, what qualifications do you have to say this to me? Su Ju shrugged and said calmly, I don't know if you have heard of the saying, licking a dog will lead to a good death. Su Ju, tell me this again. Ji Yufeng clenched his fists, looking ready to fight. Su Ju paid no attention to this guy's anger and repeated, lick a dog and you will die a good death. Do you hear me clearly? You. Su Ju walked over in 2 steps, with a domineering attitude, and said, don't accept it. Ji Yufeng, who was still angry at first, couldn't help but take 2 steps back when he saw Su Jinna's domineering look. Su Ju looked mocking and said, it's nothing. You. Su Ju grabbed Ji Yufeng's collar and said, what? You don't accept it. You, don't bully others too much. Ji Yufeng, who was still a little unconvinced, could not help but tremble with his legs at this moment. Su Ju smiled slightly and said, I've gone too far in bullying others, what can you do to me? Seeing Ji Yufeng in such a miserable state, Su Ju didn't even bother to beat the guy and pushed him back hard. Remember, don't provoke me. Even if you awaken an SSS level natal beast, you are still nothing in front of me. Ahem. I was a little out of breath due to Suju just now, and now I couldn't help but cough. Suju pulled him over again, looked at him face to face, and said, "Did you hear that?" Ji Yufeng didn't want to answer, but found that Suju was increasing his strength, and the feeling of being out of breath reappeared. He wanted to be tough, but he saw a murderous intent in Suju's eyes, which made him nod unconsciously. Suju snorted, pushed him away again, and cursed, "Get out." Ji Yufeng looked at the backs of Yu Shaoxuan and Suju leaving together and couldn't help but secretly curse. At the same time, he was also secretly cursing himself for not performing well just now. Then what Suju had awakened was only an F-level natal beast, so what right did he have to be arrogant in front of a B-level beast like himself? But the feeling Suju gave him just now was so terrible. He felt that Suju might really kill him. Yu Shaoxuan witnessed everything that just happened, even though she knew that there was no possibility for her and Suju. But even if he was blind, he wouldn't be able to find Ji Yufeng. And Suju's domineering look just now was really awesome and made him feel safe. Looking at Ji Yufeng's triumphant look on his face, it made Yu Shaoxuan feel sick. "Xiaoju, you didn't expect Ji Yufeng to be such a person." Suju smiled slightly, returned to his normal appearance, and said, "Have you never heard of it? Awakening is like a mirror, it can reflect so many things. Well, by the way, Xiaoju, I saw that you have been training before. Are you preparing for the freshman competition?" Suju nodded and said, "Although I awakened an F-class Chinese pastoral dog, I still want to give it a try in the freshman competition." Although it was clear that Suju was doing useless work, Yu Shaoxuan still recognized this spirit of refusing to admit defeat. "Well, you're right, now that you've awakened, why not give it a try in the freshman competition? This way you won't have any regrets." Suju nodded and said, "Well, I think so too. Besides, I also want to see. Is the Chinese garden dog really as unbearable as people say? How can you give up easily if you don't try? Well, I support you." Suju followed Yu Shaoxuan to have a meal in the canteen of the training center. After chatting for a while, Yu Shaoxuan was about to prepare for the afternoon special training. After Yu Shaoxuan left, she couldn't help but shake her head, it was such a pity. Even if Xiaoju awakens a C-level natal beast, he still has a chance to enter the beast control school. But now that he is awakened to level F, his chances of entering the beast control school are slim. According to my mother, no matter how good Xiaoju's performance is in the freshman competition, no beast control school will want him. After all, F-level natal beasts, no matter how much they are cultivated, are firmly restricted by the upper limit, which can suffocate a Silver Realm beast master. In the world of beast control, if you don't say that the Silver Realm is at the bottom, it's almost there. As soon as Suju finished eating, his father called him over. "Dad, you called me." Suyu nodded and said, "Xiaoju, I want you to get in touch with the management of our training center earlier, so that when you take over in the future, it will be easier." Suju understood what his father meant. He was not optimistic about his ability to enter the higher beast control school. But this is also normal. After all, in an environment where talent is the only theory, it is normal for Dad to have this idea. He can understand that his father did this for his own good. What a pitiful parent in the world. "Well, Dad, I understand." Suyu patted his son on the shoulder and said, "If you understand, that would be great. I called you here to tell you that I tried your method of opening the Yongquan point and it is really effective." Suju smiled slightly. Of course he knew it was effective. After all, could the products produced by the system be fake? Suyu continued. "What I mean is, if we test it a few more times, if it is really universal, this will be the core project of our training center. After all, your method of opening the Yongquan point is different from the orthodox method of opening the body. It will definitely have a big market, and it will also become the trump card project of our training center in time." Suju thought of something, interrupted his father and said, "Dad, if we really promote it, will we be ruined by others?" The reason why Suju asked this question was because he thought of the saying that a man is not guilty but a jade is guilty. When Suyu heard his son's words, he smiled coldly and said, "Who dares?" Suju was a little confused when he heard his father's domineering words. Dad is just a starry beast master. Although his level is pretty good, he is still far from a top beast master, right? Seeing his son's puzzled look, Suyu smiled slightly and said, although your father and I are only a starry beast master, don't forget your sister-in-law. Ah, Suju remembered that he also had a legendary uncle. Although this sister-in-law is only in the king realm, her uncle is a master of the 7 stars in the legend realm. Moreover, my uncle's family background is not simple, so he can definitely keep his father as his uncle. Suyu patted his son on the shoulder and said, you understand this time, there are no people in our family, so no one can take away this business. Suju nodded, understood what his father said, and said, yes, I understand. Suyu continued. So what I mean is that this training method is too simple and replicable, so I am going to add an exclusive medicinal diet specially developed for this training method. Do you think this price positioning is appropriate? When Suju heard what his father said, he looked up and felt that this was indeed a good idea. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. After all, my family didn't run a charity hall. There were so many people to feed. Suju thought for a moment and said, Dad, what I mean is that we can develop 3 packages A, B, and C, so that customers can consume according to their own wishes. Oh, tell me carefully. Suyu also became interested and wanted to see how talented his son was in this area. Suju did not speak directly, but thought for a while, sorted out his words before slowly speaking out his plan. Dad, what I mean is the A-level 5-day package. We can give customers some strong medicine, add some natural materials and earthly treasures to the medicated diet, and ensure that they open the Yongquan point within 5 days. The price can be a little higher. 988,888. The B-level 15-day medicated diet is cheaper. We can tell customers that because the medicine is not strong enough, they cannot train so hard, otherwise they will easily die. However, they can do it step by step, and only when the body adapts, can they train hard, which can ensure that they are 15. The sky opens the Yongquan point, the price is 288,888. The last is the C-level package prepared for the public. Since the medicinal materials are cheap, the efficacy cannot be compared with the first 2. They can be guaranteed to open the Yongquan point in 30 days, and the price is 188,888. Hearing Suju's words, Suyu couldn't help but nodded. He knew exactly what his son meant. Medicinal diet is used to confuse customers, making them think that the effect of the medicated diet is the effect of the medicated diet, while training is only auxiliary effect. And this kind of pricing is very clever. Package A opens the Yongquan point in 5 days, but the price is extremely expensive, costing 988,888, which is obviously not designed for ordinary people. Most people cannot afford this price, but the prices of Package B and Package C are somewhat interesting. The price difference between the two is only 100,000, so many people are willing to choose Package B. And there is only 1 month left until the freshman competition, and it will take some time for my own experiments. By the time this training method is actually launched, it will definitely be less than 30 days before the freshman competition. Those parents who hope that their children will become successful will definitely choose the moderately priced Package B, even if the 30 days of Package C is considered very fast. But there is not enough time before the freshman competition. For the sake of the child's future, the 100,000 yuan is still worth it. And the price is affordable for ordinary families, so it won't break their bones. Suyu looked at his son, nodded and said, well, you are right, this plan is very good, but the price of Package B is cheaper. I plan to price it at 388,888, and Package C is priced at 288,888. Suju didn't care about this. The price was something that an average family could afford with hard work. Thinking that there is a quick way to open the Yongquan point, Suju said, Dad, do I have another way to open the Yongquan point in 1 day? What? Suyu looked at his son in shock and said, what did you say? I didn't hear clearly. Suju smiled slightly and said, Dad, I said I have a way to open the Yongquan point in 1 day. Suyu looked at his son seriously and said, you didn't lie to me. Suju smiled slightly and said, Dad, why did I lie to you? In fact, my method is also very simple. Think about it, what is the core of our training method? Su Yu thought for a moment and said, by constantly squeezing the body's potential, can we achieve the purpose of opening the Yangquan point? Su Ju nodded and said, absolutely. What I mean is that we can use some drugs to stimulate their Yangquan point. In this way, stimulating the Yangquan point is equivalent to the previous Ding point. I am using my training. Fa, it is estimated that the Yangquan point can be opened in one go, and we can also get a special package. Dad, what do you think? Su Yu thought for a moment and felt that this method was indeed feasible. He just looked at his son suspiciously and said, did you come up with all of this yourself? Su Ju shook his head and said, no, the system told me. Crack. Just when Su Ju finished speaking, his mother, who had not spoken for a long time, hit her on the head. Talk to your dad. Don't deal with these useless things for a day. Su Ju touched his head and felt that other people's systems were hidden and he didn't dare to tell anyone. And I am so honest with you, but you still say that it is useless for me to do this. Well, it's so hard for me. Su Yu quickly found a drug that stimulates the Yangquan point. This drug is relatively common on the market. This kind of medicine can be regarded as a method to assist in opening the orifice. These medicines can be used to help the Beast Master locate the orifice points. This is safer and much more efficient than trying to position the Beastmaster on his own. Su Ju said, Dad, if you find some soul power restoring medicine and mix it into it, won't you have this medicinal diet? Su Yu didn't understand what his son meant and looked at him with confusion. Su Ju explained to him, what I mean is, when the customer can't hold on anymore, use this medicine to locate the Yangquan point for him. At this time, mix the medicine to restore the soul power into it, and let them use the soul power to attack the acupoints. At that time, the training method has already taken effect, and the only thing left before the awakening is an opportunity. Our medicine is to make this opportunity arrive in advance. After listening to this, Su Yu felt that this method was quite reliable. Then he found some medicine to restore soul power and mixed it in, and handed it to his wife Xu Jing. Xu Jing stepped onto the treadmill and was ready to run with all her strength. Su Ju quickly stopped his mother's actions and said, Mom, how long do you have to wait until you consume your soul power? Xu Jing didn't know what her son had in mind, so she looked at him and said, say it in one breath. Hey, Mom, what I mean is, first use medicine to seal all your acupoints, so that your soul power cannot be restored, and you can save a lot of time running with all your strength. Also, you can use the soul dispersing pill to temporarily disperse your soul power. This way you can only rely on physical strength to train. This will save a lot of time and you can enter the training state faster. Su Yu and Xu Jing nodded at the same time, feeling that their son's idea was quite reliable. Otherwise, just like this morning, even if you run at full strength for 3 hours, you will slowly enter a state of exhaustion. What a waste of time. Su Yu found these two drugs again. After Xu Jing took them, she started sprinting on the treadmill with all her strength. The body of a starry beast master can run at full strength for an hour even without the supplement of soul power and relying solely on physical strength. An hour later, Xu Jing entered a state of exhaustion. Su Ju quickly handed the elixir to stimulate the Yangquan point and restore soul power to his mother. After Xu Jing took the 2 elixirs, she used the recovered soul power to attack the located Yangquan point with all her strength. There was almost no obstacle, and the Yangquan point on the sole of the left foot was opened. This method of violently opening acupuncture points is similar to being forcibly opened by the system, and requires a few seconds of severe pain. Xu Jing frowned slightly, obviously she was not used to the severe pain. Fortunately, this feeling lasted only a few seconds, and Su Ju had said before that there would be some side effects, so my mother was mentally prepared. So Xu Jing still endured the severe pain at this time, and soon after the Yangquan point was opened, she felt that warm feeling. Xu Jing's brows spread, and she looked at the father and son with a look of surprise on her face, and said, Husband, the method my son mentioned is really effective. It opens the Yangquan point with almost no effort. Su Yu was equally excited when he heard his wife's words. He knew what it meant. It's all just pennies. Son, you are really a genius, a super genius. Just by relying on this training method, you can go down in history. Hearing his mother's compliment, Su Ju smiled slightly and said, Mom, you only have the Yangquan point on your left foot open now, what about your right foot? Hiss. After hearing their son's words, both husband and wife realized what they meant. Yes, people have more than 1 foot, they have 2 feet, that is, there are 2 Yongquan points. This method is not to open 1 Yongquan point, but 2 Yongquan points. For Xinsheng Dabi, opening 1 acupoint and opening 2 acupoints are completely different concepts. The month after awakening is also called the novice welfare period. It is much easier to open acupuncture points during this period than at other times. If a freshman has already opened 2 acupoints, and then uses this method to open 2 acupoints, the chance of entering the ideal college will increase infinitely. Moreover, the Yongquan acupoints on both feet are opened at the same time, which can also complement each other and is much stronger than the other 2 unrelated acupoints. Su Yu immediately went through it in his mind, and several skills related to Yongquan point appeared in his mind in an instant. The Yongquan point is located on both feet, and many exercises and skills can be used. This training method of my own is very marketable. The mother hugged Su Ju over, touched his head again and again, and said with emotion, "How come I gave birth to such a genius son?" After hearing what their mother said, both father and son had expressions of approval. Su Yu came back to his senses and said, "This method needs to be carefully considered. The core theory is still too simple. We need to make it more complicated." Su Ju smiled slightly and said, "Dad, this is not simple. Add some useless medicinal materials to it so that they can't copy it." Su Yu nodded and said, "Well, what you said is just a method. We can also prepare some special nutrient solutions. Anyway, they are all for replenishing soul power. There are no side effects after taking them." Su Yu is definitely an expert on these matters, so Su Ju doesn't need to worry about them at all. Su Ju said something to his parents and continued training. Seeing their son leave, both husband and wife felt satisfied. "Husband, do you think my son can enter the beast control school with this training method?" Su Yu shook his head, with a sneer on his face, and said, "You can definitely get in, but if you don't take it seriously, what's the use of a diploma?" After a pause, Su Yu continued, "Believe it or not, my son took this training method to the beast control school, and finally this training method was announced. It must have nothing to do with our son. The creators can only be those beast control schools. An expert professor from the veterinary school." When Xu Jing heard these words, she gradually calmed down after being a little excited. She knew that what Su Yu said was correct. There were more and more shameless experts and professors in this society. 2 days ago, an expert and professor swore that global warming was caused by pet animals eating too much beans and farting. Xu Jing wanted to say that the farts of those pet beasts are not as much as the air breathed by experts and professors like you. From now on, you experts and professors should stop breathing and shut up, so that global warming will not occur. Now it seems that even if his son enters the beast control school, what will happen? If you don't get any resources, then what will happen after you graduate? It's really better to keep this training method at home. Isn't real money worth more than that useless diploma?" Seeing that his wife had figured it out, Su Yu continued, "F-class natal beast. Do you think that even if your son does well in the freshman competition, will there really be a beast controlling school to choose his son?" After hearing her husband's words, Xu Jing couldn't help but look sad. Su Yu continued, "The Fengcheng Beast Control Vocational and Technical School I mentioned before is not a serious beast control school, but in theory it is recognized by the state as a beast control school. They are all just diplomas, what's the difference?" Xu Jing sighed and said, "Well, I hope my son can think about it, right?" Su Yu also sighed and said, "Oh, you said even AC level natal beast is fine. Why is it F level?" When Xu Jing heard this, her previous joy disappeared instantly, and she could only lament the unfair fate. Just now she also saw her son eating with that girl Xiaoxuan. But she knew in her heart that it was impossible to have an A-level potential beast master and an F-level potential beast master. "Husband, when do you think our training method will be put on the market?" Su Yu thought for a moment and said, "In 3 days, more people will choose package B." Xu Jing looked at him puzzled and said, "What package B, package C?" "Haha, this is the method my son came up with." Su Ju, who was training, didn't have so many thoughts and was focusing on training wholeheartedly. As for Yu Xiaoxuan, in Su Ju's eyes at this moment, she was just a friend for fun. Now is the time when I am improving at a high speed, so I don't have the time to think about these messy things. Dawang, hold on, we have to complete double training tasks today. Let's see if there are any benefits from extra training. Woof. Chapter 11. Congratulations to the host, you have completed today's double training. As the saying goes, no pain, no gain, hard work will always be rewarded. Special rewards. Open Taishi Point 1, Physique 3. Suju was slightly disappointed that he didn't start the training method of Taishi Point today. Then Suju couldn't help but shake his head and lamented that he was too greedy. A method to open the Yongquan Point could already make his family a lot of money. Suju opened the attribute panel and took a look at his current attributes. Except for strength, the other 3 attributes were all past 10 points. I don't know if all the attributes have reached 10 points, does it mean that it is a bronze level 2 star? Suju looked at the time, it was already past 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I came to the cafeteria for a meal. At this time, there were more and more people in the training center, and there were no more seats. But this is not a problem for Suyu. If others don't have room, how can he, the young master, have room? After eating, Suju calculated that he should be able to complete an additional training session. Yesterday I tried double training. What about 3 trainings? Are there any rewards? Even if you don't pay yourself, it's just some time. Thinking of this, Suju took Dahuang and started training again. The staff here were all sighing and lamenting that it was a pity. Even if you awaken AC level natal beast, there is still a glimmer of hope to enter the beast control school. But now that there are F-class natal beasts, there is absolutely no beast controlling school willing to hire Suju. At 10:30 in the evening, Suju finally completed 3 times the training intensity. The sound of the system also rang in his ears. Congratulations to the host for completing 3 additional trainings. As the saying goes, you can't reach 1,000 miles without taking small steps. Special rewards are to open the Xingjian Acupoint 2, to open the Taishi Acupoint 1, and to open the Xingjian Acupoint 1. Oh, when 2 acupoints were opened at the same time, Suju couldn't help but scream out at the severe pain. The nearby staff saw Suju's painful look and ran over quickly. Xiaoju, are you okay? Suju had already recovered at this time, waved his hand and said, it's okay, it's just cramps. Xiaoju, I'm not telling you that you are working too hard. Suju smiled, said nothing, and returned to the lounge with the support of the staff member. After receiving the news, Suyu and his wife rushed over immediately, fearing that something unexpected would happen to Suju. Son, are you okay? Hearing what his mother said, Suju smiled slightly and said, Mom, I'm fine, I just accidentally opened 2 acupoints. Did you accidentally open 2 acupoints? Listen to what people say. Xu Jing slapped him angrily and said, speak properly, don't be in trouble all day long. Suju chuckled and said, Mom, I really didn't lie to you. After I finished training just now, I suddenly felt that the Xingjian acupoints on both feet were opened at the same time. You have experienced that kind of severe pain. This is double the amount for me. The pain was so severe that I couldn't help but scream. Xu Jing looked at him in disbelief and said, is what you said true? Suju nodded and said, of course it is true, there is no need to lie to you. Suyu also looked surprised and said, so, within 2 days of your awakening, you have opened 4 acupoints. Suju shook his head and said, it's not 4, it's 6. 2 Taishi points are also open today. Phew, the couple had the urge to spurt blood, and opening the acupoints was time-consuming and laborious. My son's luck is as simple as drinking water. He can open 6 acupoints in less than 2 days. No one will believe him if he tells me. But they knew that since their son said so, he must have opened 6 acupoints. Suyu looked at Suju and asked, Xiaoju, how did you turn it on? Suju wanted to say that he would turn it on just by running, but when he thought of the previous training method rewarded by the system, he suddenly had an idea. Dad, I don't know how the Xingjian Acupoint was opened, but there are some clues about the Taishi Acupoint, but I don't know if it can be copied. Suyu looked a little excited and said, still your training method? Suju shook his head and said, it's different. This time, I run with all my strength for 5 minutes, jog for 5 minutes, run with all my strength for 5 minutes, and then jog again. This cycle continues until I am exhausted. But I don't know this method. Is it feasible? Su Yu glanced at Xu Jing and said, my Taishi point is open, both sides are open. Xu Jing looked helpless and said, am I the guinea pig for you and me? Hee hee, hee hee. Seeing the expressions of the father and son, Xu Jing was speechless. These were indeed his biological father and son, even their expressions were the same. It's still the old method of dissipating the soul power and sealing other acupoints. Xu Jing stepped on the treadmill again, following the method Su Ju said, constantly cycling between sprinting and jogging. An hour later, Xu Jing still had plenty of physical strength and could not see any difference. Until 2 hours later, it was already midnight, and this family of 3 was the only one training in the entire training center. Xu Jing finally entered a state of exhaustion at this time, and Su Ju quickly handed his mother the pill that located the Taishi point and restored her soul power. After Xu Jing ate it, she quickly sensed the location of the Taishi point on her left foot, and then began to attack the Taishi point with her soul power. Puff! Xu Jing felt that the severe pain came over in just a moment, and it lasted for a few seconds just like when the Yongquan point was opened before. After the severe pain disappeared, the Taishi point on the left foot had been successfully opened. Xu Jing looked at the father and son with surprise on her face and said, yes, this method can not only open the Yongquan point, but also the Taishi point. Hearing Xu Jing's words, both father and son showed excited expressions. Su Yu looked at Su Ju and said, son, how did you come up with this training method? Su Ju scratched his head and said, Dad, don't ask me, I just accidentally hit it. There is no scientific basis at all. It was all opened by luck. I'm not lying to you. I can still open the Taishi acupoint in this way, but I really don't know how to open the Xingjian acupoint. I was training, and the Xingjian acupoint on both feet opened at the same time. Give me, it hurts so much. Su Yu patted Su Ju's shoulder and said, son, your method of opening acupuncture points is very difficult. Don't say it casually. There are too many things involved. How could Su Ju not be aware of such a thing? He said, Dad, don't worry, I won't tell anyone about this except the 3 of us. When people ask, I have a body that is easy to wake up. Seeing that Su Ju had understood what he meant, Su Yu nodded with satisfaction. Well, you're right. If anyone asks you, just say that you have a physique that is easy to awaken, so that they can't do anything. Su Yu thought of something and continued, I didn't have any hope for your cultivation before. After all, you also know that rhubarb is an F-level natal beast. But now that I see how easy it is for you to wake up, I have changed my mind. Son, for thousands of years, the natal beast has led its master to upgrade. Have you ever thought about whether it can be done the other way around? In turn, seeing Su Ju's surprised look, Su Yu nodded. Yes, it's the other way around. Previously, the owner couldn't bring his pet beast to upgrade. That was because the pet beast was born with more acupoints open than the owner. But now your situation is completely reversed. Rhubarb should only have a dozen or so acupoints open now, but you, the master, have opened 6 acupoints in just less than 2 days. That's why I said, is there a possibility that in the end you will open more acupoints than rhubarb opens? If there are suitable exercises, your cultivation speed will be accelerated, but maybe you can really do it. Level up with rhubarb. After hearing what his father said, Su Ju thought about it carefully for a while and felt that it was not unreasonable. This natal beast can be upgraded through a spiritual contract with the beast master himself, and the reverse is also possible. It's just that my father was wrong in one thing. Rhubarb doesn't open a dozen or so acupoints. Now rhubarb has opened 313 acupoints. If there are corresponding skills, rhubarb can definitely take off on the spot. But Su Ju understood what his father meant and said, Dad, I know what to do. Regardless of success or failure, I will continue on this path and will never give up halfway. Su Yu nodded and said, it's best if you understand what I mean. Son, the path of cultivation is not fixed. Maybe you will find a different path. Dad is optimistic about you. Su Ju nodded heavily and continued, Dad, I will persevere. Back in the lounge, Su Ju took rhubarb into a meditative state again. At 5 o'clock in the morning, the system automatically refreshed today's tasks. Daily task. Task 1. 3,000 push-ups, reward strength 2. Task 2. Punch 3,000 times, reward strength 2. Task 3. Back up the mountain 4,000 times, reward physique 2. Task 4. Meditate for 1 hour, reward spirit or understanding 5. Note: complete all tasks today and you will be rewarded with the F-level skill Shadowless Kick. Suju noticed that the extra rewards for completing all tasks today have changed. It is no longer the previous Acupoint opening, but has become an F-level skill. But this is better, otherwise no matter how many Acupoints are opened, if they cannot be converted into combat power, everything will be in vain. Suju had breakfast and started a new day of training with rhubarb. Suyu and his wife are now used to their son's self-discipline, and they feel a little relieved to see him start training again. Shujing looked at her son who kept punching hard and asked, "Husband, what you said to your son yesterday are true?" Suyu sighed and said, "It's a mixture of truth and falsehood. Now that my son is in such a situation, what else would he do if he didn't say this?" Shujing also sighed and said, "Oh, it's a pity. Even a C-level natal beast has a glimmer of hope." Suyu nodded and said, "Now it depends on whether my son can continue to open the Acupoints like this. If so, maybe he can really take a different path. Well, we can only hope for this now." Yu Xiaoxuan was also paying attention to Suju. Although both of them knew it was impossible, she would not treat Suju like Ji Yufeng did. "Now that I see Suju training so hard, I feel sorry for him." It only took Suju a whole morning to complete 3 tasks, and he completed an hour of meditation during his lunch break. Congratulations to the host for understanding the F-level skill Shadowless Kick. The future missions will begin around Shadowless Kick. Suju didn't understand what the system meant, and then he saw the taskbar change. Task: Shadowless Kick 10,000 times, reward for opening Dadan Point 2. 10,000 Shadowless Feet. Suju saw the skill Shadowless Foot in his skill bar. After trying to run it, I found that this skill is very simple, and the soul power only communicates with 3 acupoints, namely Yongquan, Taishi, and Xingjian. This is far from the skills of those 7 or 8 acupoints in memory. But when you think about it being an F-level skill, you can understand it. Suju came to the training ground and started using the Shadowless Kick. Bang! He kicked the training sandbag, and the tester above showed 780 kilograms. Regarding this strength, Suju shook his head slightly. F-level skills were indeed not good, and this level of power was not enough to deal with humans. But using it to deal with pet beasts may be somewhat powerless. Suju gave Dawang the order to continue the collision, and he began to repeat the movement of the Shadowless Kick. Originally, he thought he could complete 10,000 Shadowless Kicks in one afternoon, but he overestimated himself. In one afternoon and evening, Suju only completed more than 5,000 times. This use of Shadowless Feet is different from the previous mission. This is a skill. Even F-level skills require soul power. It's not something that can be accomplished with willpower and physical strength. Suju got up early the next day and continued to use the Shadowless Kick. After the system update, the daily tasks have completely changed. Today's task is to perform 10 Shadowless Kicks, 100 Shadowless Kicks, and 1000 Shadowless Kicks in 3 levels, plus 2 hours of meditation. Rhubarb's task also became hitting 10 times, 100 times, 1000 times and meditating for 2 hours. If all are completed, it will become +2 for all attributes. Although it cannot be compared with before, it is still pretty good. For the whole day, Suju and Dawang repeated the same actions. At 5 o'clock in the evening, Suju finally completed all the tasks for the day. The sound of the system rang in Suju's ears. Congratulations to the host for completing 10,000 Shadowless Kicks within 3 days. The special reward is to open the Dadan Point 2 in all attributes 3. Another 2-foot acupoints were opened at the same time, and the familiar sharp pain came again, making Suju couldn't help but groan. Xu Jing, who had been paying attention to her son, ran over quickly and asked with concern, "Son, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?" Suju had already spent the few seconds of severe pain. He looked at his mother and said, "Mom, I'm fine. It's just that both feet opened the Dadan Point at the same time. It's a little unbearable." "Depend on." Xu Jing glared at her son fiercely, thinking to herself that this was her son, and she would have scolded him if he had been someone else. How can anyone be so awesome? Or if you open the dadan points on both feet at the same time, why don't you go to heaven? Suju smiled slightly and said, Mom, didn't I open the Yongquan Acupoint, Taishi Acupoint, and Xingjian Acupoint before? Xu Jing nodded, looked at her son and said, well, what's wrong? I was just thinking about seeing if I could come up with a skill, so. Nonsense. Xu Jing quickly stopped Suju's idea and said sternly, I don't allow you to do this. Skills are not created casually. If you fail, you will be disabled for life. How could Suju not know this truth? The years of learning from him were not in vain. Mom, listen to me. I won't listen. No matter what you say, I won't allow you to do this. Son, our family's conditions are not bad. You don't need to work so hard. Be obedient and give up this idea quickly. Suju shrugged slightly and said, Mom, you're too late, I've already created it successfully. What? Xu Jing looked at Suju with a confused face, and then gave him a big bag. Who asked you to create skills without authorization? Do you know how dangerous it is? If you are not good at it, you will be completely disabled. Is it so easy for me to train you? Suju knew it would be like this, but now her mother was so angry that she would suffer internal injuries if she didn't let her finish speaking. Xu Jing squirted there for 5 minutes before she stopped. At this time, Su Yu saw his wife's angry look and walked over and asked, Jing, what happened to make you so angry? Xu Jing took a deep breath, calmed down a little, and said, this little fool actually created skills without authorization. Do you think I should scold him? Crack. Suju once again gave his father a big kick, and then he was greeted by a foot kick. You prodigal thing, is it so easy for me to raise you? You white-eyed wolf, let me see if I don't beat you to death today. 10 minutes later, you said you didn't strike lightly or harshly, look at how you hit the child. Facing his wife's accusation, Su Yu said angrily, who asked me to hit him just now? Hit him hard. If I ask you to beat me, just beat me. If I tell you to die, why don't you die? Su Yu sighed helplessly. After being married for many years, he knew that shutting up at this time was the wisest choice. Suju, who was lying on the bed, looked helpless and a little emotional at the same time. Is this what it feels like to be beaten by your parents? Due to his special experiences in his previous life, his parents had never spanked him, at least since he was sensible, he had never been spanked by his parents. Unexpectedly, I would enjoy such treatment just a few days after traveling through time. After Xu Jing complained about her husband, she started to abuse Suju again. Why are you so ignorant? You created this skill as soon as you said it was created. Who do you think you are? You are not destined to die. After falling behind for a while, Su Yu asked, have you created that skill? Suju nodded and said, well, it's very simple. I only opened 6 acupoints in total, 3 on each foot. Etc. Su Yu interrupted Suju and said, you mean your skill only has 3 acupoints? Suju nodded and said, yes, it just connects 3 acupoints. And Dad, I used this skill constantly before. I used it more than 10,000 times in less than 2 days, and I actually damaged the 2 big acupoints on both feet. It's turned on, don't you think it's irritating? Crack. Suju hit his mother on the head again, and then heard in his ears, look what you can do, why don't you go to heaven? That's right, your mother is right, hit me hard. Xu Jing raised her head and glanced at Su Yu, and said, I think you're looking for a beating, right? Didn't you see that your son was beaten like this? Where do you want me to beat him? Where to beat him? Suju was a little moved at first, but when he heard his mother's words, he was speechless again. Emotional mom, this is not because she feels sorry for herself, but because she has no place to start. So your skill really has 3 acupoints. Suju nodded when he heard his father's words and said, Dad, I can't even get more acupoints if I want. I only have these 3 acupoints on 1 foot. Su Yu nodded and said, you have used it 10,000 times, no problem. Suju thought for a moment and said, that doesn't mean there are no problems. Hearing what their son said, the couple's originally relieved hearts could not help but feel suspended again. Xu Jing said with concern, son, what's wrong with you? Suju smiled slightly and said, Mom, don't worry, it's nothing serious. Didn't I just say that when you kick it 10,000 times, the da-dun points will open by themselves, and there are still 2 of them. Crack. Xu Jing gave the fool another slap on the head angrily and said, let's see what you can do. Hee hee. Su Ju chuckled and continued. This skill is very simple and not very powerful. It is probably only F level, right? After Su Yu pondered for a moment, he said, come. Let me see the power of this kick. Su Ju did not hesitate. Before his awakening, he had practiced this kind of sparring with his father. Dad, here I come. Bang. After Su Ju finished speaking, he raised his foot and hit it with a shadowless kick without even thinking about it. Su Yu gently raised his arm and intercepted the shadowless kick. Su Ju changed his feet and kicked out another shadowless kick, more than a dozen kicks in just a few seconds. Su Yu felt it for a while and said, well, that's it. Su Ju stopped his kicking motion and asked, Dad, does this count as a skill? Su Yu nodded and said, theoretically, it is indeed a skill, but it is not very powerful. It is similar to what you said. The power is F level, which can only be said to be more powerful than ordinary heavy kicks. But this skill of yours is not without its advantages. The advantage is that the kick speed is fast enough. You can use this skill more than 10 times in a row in just a few seconds, which is quite remarkable. Xu Jing on the side saw it clearly. As a starry beast master, she could also see the advantages and disadvantages of her son's skill. Well, your dad is right, but another advantage of your skill is that it opens very few acupoints. If I remember correctly, the minimum number of acupoints for an F-level skill is 5. Su Yu nodded and said, well, Jing, you remember correctly, the lowest F-level acupoints are indeed 5, but what Xiaoju said just now reminded me of something. Both mother and son focused their attention on Su Yu, not knowing what he was talking about. Su Yu sorted out his thoughts, looked at Su Ju and said, are you sure that using this skill a certain number of times can open the da-dun point? Su Ju thought for a while and said honestly, I'm not sure, but this is indeed the case for me. When I used it 10,000 times, the 2 da-dun points were opened at the same time. By the way, the counter showed that it was 10,000. Second rate. Su Yu nodded and said, come on, use your soul power to connect the da-dun point, follow the route you just ran, and finally connect to the da-dun point. Su Ju didn't understand what his father meant by this. Didn't he just say that he was joking? Why are you allowing yourself to create your own skills all of a sudden? Turning to look at her mother, Xu Jing said angrily, your father and I are watching from the side, how can we let anything happen to you? After being scolded by his mother, Su Ju followed his father's instructions and used the shadowless foot again. The difference was that this time there were not 3 acupoints, but 4, and finally the da-dun acupoint was connected. Bang! Su Yu intercepted it easily and said, continue, don't stop. When Su Ju heard this, he stopped fussing and used his shadowless kick continuously, and kicked with both feet. Okay, that's all. Do you feel any difference? Su Ju felt it just now. After all, this skill was performed by him, how could he not know it clearly? The power is stronger, the coordination between the feet is more rounded, and the speed of the kick is also faster. Su Yu nodded and said, do you know why I asked you to connect the da-dun point? Su Ju shook his head, how could he know this? Su Yu explained to him, this skill of yours is not simple, especially when it is used a certain number of times, it will automatically open other acupoints. When this happens, it means that your skill is not perfect, or it is incomplete now. Through your continuous use, you can stimulate the fully connected acupoints, so your da-dun acupoint will automatically open. Su Ju understood at this time and recalled the feeling of releasing the skill just now. It felt like this was indeed the case. Dad, do you think my skill will be used according to the current operation method? If I use it a certain number of times, will it open other acupoints again? Su Yu shook his head and said, no one can give you the answer to your situation. After all, no one knew this skill before you. It can be said that you are the pioneer on this road. You can only explore it yourself. Furthermore, if it is true as you said, and you can continue to open 1 or 2 acupoints, then your skill will probably enter E level. Of course, this is just my speculation, and the specific situation is not yet clear. After listening to his father's words, Suju fell into deep thought and felt that if he continued training like this, he might really be able to open up other acupoints. Xu Jing looked at the father and son in surprise and said, "So, our son is still a genius." Su Yu snorted and said, "It's just a blind cat encountering a dead mouse." Suju, remember that this kind of thing is very important. Don't try it next time. Hearing that his father's name for him had changed, Suju quickly said, "Yeah, Dad, I know." "Well, it's getting late, let's go back and rest." Seeing Suju leaving, the couple looked at each other and felt that their son might really be able to find a different path. Suju left the room and returned to the lounge, taking rhubarb with him and continuing to meditate. He also knew that no matter how good he performed in the freshman competition, the F-level natal beast would definitely be flawed. If he wants to enter the ideal No. 1 Beast Control Academy in Fengcheng, he can only perform more dazzlingly. 5 o'clock the next morning. The sound of the system rang in Suju's ears on time, and the daily tasks were updated again. It's exactly the same as yesterday's mission. There is still no reward for opening the Acupoint. Now the reward is attribute points. But because I completed the last mission of using the shadowless kick 10,000 times in a row. This time the task requirement has become to use the shadowless kick 100,000 times continuously, and the reward of the task is to open the yin point at the same time. Seeing such a reminder, Suju felt that maybe using the shadowless foot continuously could really open up all the acupoints on the feet. And it was confirmed yesterday that if all attributes exceed 10 points, you will enter the Bronze Mirror Star 2. Now that his realm is not too far away from the Bronze Mirror's 3 stars, Suju stood up and took Dawang to have breakfast. While eating breakfast, I was thinking about what my father said to me yesterday. Could it be said that this shadowless kick is really not complete, and there is still a possibility of promotion? After having breakfast and resting for a short while, Suju started today's training. Instead of following the linkage of the 4 orifices as instructed by my father, I still tried using the shadowless feet from before. After kicking several times in a row, the number of times changes. Then Suju followed the linkage of the 4 orifices as instructed by his father and started to use it more than 10 times in a row. At this moment, the prompt tone of the God's Way rewarding system sounded in my ears. Congratulations to the host for being able to understand the operation route of the shadowless foot on his own. No matter how hard you work, you will gain something, which does not mean following the steps. In view of the fact that the host can understand on his own, I will specially reward comprehension 10. I hope the host will continue to work hard. Suju was slightly disappointed when he heard such a reward. I thought that this time I would be rewarded with the opening of other acupoints, but unexpectedly it was 10 points of understanding. Thinking of this, Suju shook his head unconsciously, feeling that he was so greedy. Having 10 comprehension points is considered a good reward. He discovered an interesting thing, that is, the improvement of his realm has nothing to do with his understanding. As long as the 4 attributes of strength, physique, agility, and spirit meet the requirements, you can enter the next realm. But this understanding is not a necessary condition for realm improvement. No longer thinking so much, Suju kept using the shadowless kick according to the new running route. Congratulations to the host for completing 100,000 shadowless kicks within a week. The reward is to open the yin point 2 in all attributes 5. As the words fell, the familiar pain came again, and a look of pain appeared on Suju's face. Fortunately, this process is very short, only a few seconds. When the Yin Acupoint opened, Suju's idea was to connect the Yin Acupoint as well. Bang! This time Wang kicked the tester, and the kilograms displayed reached 1800 kilograms, which was a full 300 kilograms more than before. It seemed to be only 300 kilograms, but Suju knew that this increase was not only the attack power, but also the attack speed and attack frequency. Both feet were swung continuously, and the sound of hitting kept ringing in the training room. Suju tested his extreme attack. In 1 minute, Suju could kick about 300 times continuously. And the force of each kick is about 1,600 kilograms, which is much stronger than before. After the Yin point was opened, Suju clearly felt that the speed of his soul power recovery had also significantly increased. What made Suju most satisfied with this improvement was the speed of the Wang kick. Quick, it was at least 1/10 faster than before. This 1/10 didn't seem like much, but he knew that it was already a big improvement. As this task is completed, the next task appears on the Suju task interface. Task: continuously use the shadowless feet connected to the 5 orifices 1 million times, reward for opening the inner court Acupoint 2, random reward 1 million times. When Suju saw this task, he felt it was a bit difficult. It took him 4 days to complete it 100,000 times. Just start using the shadowless kick every day as soon as the soul power is full. It can be said that there is not a moment of laziness. Now, only 2 acupoints have been opened after 1 million times. Suju sighed and looked at the time. There were only about 20 days left before the freshman competition. Fight. Suju was ready to challenge and see if he could complete this task before the freshman competition. In this way, he can take advantage of the 12 acupoints to meet the upcoming freshman competition. Then Suju checked Dawang's bite and impact skills, and now they have all been upgraded to E level. Dawang, we are going to practice more and strive to improve all the skills to C level before the freshman competition. Are you confident? Woof. Dawang happily agreed, although he still couldn't understand why his master wanted to train like this. But so what, the master himself is also training hard, so he can just follow the training. Come on. Woof. Suju's words of encouragement were not only to cheer Dawang, but also to cheer himself up. 20 days. 1 million times. Come on. In the following time, Suju discovered that as the 5 orifices were connected, the frequency of using the shadowless kick increased a lot. It is not impossible to complete the task before the freshman competition. And with the attribute points rewarded from daily tasks, Suju's completion speed increased a lot. Suyu and his wife have been paying attention to their son's training. Seeing Suju training so hard, the couple were relieved, but also sighed at Dahuang's inability. However, no one can complain about this awakening, except that God is unfair. Congratulations to the host for completing 1 million shadowless foot missions within 30 days. The reward is to open the inner court Acupoint 2 and physical strength plus 10. As the system finished speaking, the familiar pain came again. But this time something that puzzled Suju happened. It still hurt, but it wasn't the kind of pain that he couldn't bear before. Could it be said that this is the effect of physical strength plus 10? Before Suju could think about it, the inner court Acupoint had been opened, and that warm feeling came again. At the same time, the voice of the Tiandao reward system sounded in Suju's ears again. Congratulations to the host for opening more than 10 acupoints within 1 month after awakening. Special rewards include physical strength plus 10, all attributes plus 10, and shadowless feet level plus 1. After hearing the system's words, Suju's whole body soul power fluctuated, and then he finally entered the silver realm from the bronze mirror 9 stars. While Suju was improving, the system's voice sounded in Suju's ears again. Since your pet has opened more than 10 orifices within 1 month, it will be specially rewarded with physical strength plus 20, bite skill level plus 1, and impact skill plus 1. Your pet has been promoted to the silver realm. Will it evolve into a 2-headed dog? Can rhubarb evolve? Suju found an introduction to the 2-headed dog in Memory China. This is an E-level pet beast, not too strong. He did not let rhubarb evolve immediately, but sent a message to rhubarb through a spiritual contract, asking it if it wanted to evolve. Soon Dawang replied to Suju that if he evolved, all his skills would disappear, and the opened acupoints would also disappear. That's nonsense. Rhubarb is now a Chinese pastoral dog with 325 orifices opened, which is much better than that 2-headed dog. Besides, all the skills will disappear after evolution, so wouldn't rhubarb's suffering these days be in vain? The most important thing is that the RRR level skills will disappear after rebirth. Sujuk is reluctant to let Dawang evolve. He believed that with the system of God's reward for hard work, even if rhubarb did not evolve, it would be far behind other natal beasts. Besides, I am used to seeing Dawang like this now. If it really turns into 2 heads, it will always feel weird. Suju no longer thinks about this, but checks his current physical strength. Just now the system said that the physical strength of his body has been strengthened by 10. Suju didn't know whether this 10 was 10% or if there were other calculation methods. After a round of testing, Suju found that the strength of this physical body was plus 10, which was definitely not an increase of 10%. He could feel that his physical body was now several times stronger than before. Whether it's strength or physique, or movement speed, attack frequency, and shooting speed, they all increase to varying degrees. It's just that these are not reflected in the attribute points. They are still attribute points. Then Suju used the shadowless kick again, wanting to see what the shadowless kick that was promoted to D level looked like. It was just at this time that an accident happened. The soul power was out of control and began to move along an unknown route. Originally it was only one leg with 5 orifices connected, but now it has become 2 legs with 12 orifices connected. The running trajectory is also completely different from before. It can be said that the current shadowless foot is much more complicated than before. Bang! Suju saw that the number on the dynamometer changed to 12,000 kilograms. When this number came out, Suju was shocked. He thought the improvement would be huge, but he didn't expect it to be such a big improvement. This is equivalent to a huge force of 12 tons, which is more than 4 times higher than before. Of course, this includes the bonus of soul power after entering the silver realm, and the bonus brought by the increase in physical strength. But this huge force of 12 tons was enough to shock Suju. The most important thing is that this shadowless kick is not over with just one kick. The most powerful thing about the shadowless kick is its attack frequency. Suju used the shadowless kick according to the new trajectory, and kicked 8 times in a row in 1 second. The attack power of each kick was more than 12 tons. And after Suju used it for a period of time, he discovered that this skill actually had the characteristic that as long as it was not interrupted, the attack power would gradually increase. This was a bit remarkable. Suju gave it a try. By the time he kicked the 10th kick in a row, the attack had become 12,500 kilograms. When kicked 30 times in a row, the attack power has exceeded 13,000 kilograms. When he kicked 50 times in a row, his attack power had become 13,500 kilograms. Seeing such changes, Suju naturally became excited. Tomorrow is the freshman competition. With such an improvement now, it is definitely a trump card in his hand. Suju stopped to test and turned to look at Rhubarb's attribute panel. The bite and impact have been upgraded to D level, and their power is much greater than before. In addition, Rhubarb's physical strength has also increased by 20, making Rhubarb's combat power several times higher than before. Looking at the time, he saw that there was only 1 day left before the freshman competition, and the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up slightly. Freshman competition, here I come. Son, don't be nervous. Even if you don't perform well, it doesn't matter. Your dad has already contacted you to a beast control school. Hearing what his mother said, Suju was slightly surprised and said, Mom, can we go through the back door? What kind of school is this? Xu Jing looked a little embarrassed, but she still said it, Fengcheng Beast Control Vocational and Technical School. Ah, how could Suju not know anything about this school? You have to say that it is not a beast control school, but the country still recognizes it. But you have to say that it is a serious beast control school. The majors offered by this school are completely different from other beast control schools. Give the pet a beauty salon, tailor-made clothes for the pet, massage the pet, cook for the pet, sing to the pet, and provide psychological counseling for the pet. It is completely different from other beast control schools that start with alchemy, forging, bloodline research, pet cultivation, pet evolution direction, and pet skill training. Xu Jing saw her son's face and said, Don't think about this yet. The freshman competition hasn't started yet. What if you are spotted by another school? After hearing what his mother said, Suju thought the same thing. Freshman competition podium. Zhongshan sat on the podium with a helpless expression. Didn't he just kill 3,000 blood barbarians without authorization? As for demoting himself to the school as a teacher for 3 years. Being a teacher means being a teacher, but what about setting up a vocational and technical school for yourself? Zhongshan sat there and put a lot of pressure on the principals of other schools. Everyone here is in the realm of kings, but this guy is in the legendary realm and is a legendary 8-star powerhouse. The most important thing is that you can feel the bloody smell of this guy sitting there. How many people must be killed to accumulate so much bloody energy? Xiaoju, here. Suju saw Yu Xiaoxuan waving to him and waved in response. Such an action was quickly seen by Ji Yufeng. When he saw his goddess greeting the fool Su Ju, his face immediately darkened. At this moment, a pair of hands put on his shoulders. It was his new big brother Chen Kai. Chen Kai naturally knew that Ji Yufeng liked Yu Xiaoxuan and said, "Xiaofeng, how many times have I told you to be open-minded? Yu Xiaoxuan will soon realize who is the most suitable person for her." When Ji Yufeng heard this, his expression softened and he said, "What brother Kai said is that after today, Su Ju and us will be two different people in the world." Chen Kai nodded and said, "I'm very happy that you think so. Behave well. I'll be waiting for you at Fengcheng Yiyu." Su Ju didn't even look at Ji Yufeng. For such a white-eyed wolf, it was a waste of time to talk to him. Today, Su Yu also rushed over, patted his son on the shoulder and said, "Behave well." Soon the bell rang and the freshman competition officially began. This so-called freshman competition is not the kind of arena competition that requires freshmen to compete in the arena. Instead, it passes various assessments such as strength, agility, and coordination with pet beasts. Su Ju followed other candidates into the examination room. According to the grouping, Su Ju was assigned to Group B and ranked No. 87. Xiaoju, you are also in Group B. Su Ju looked at Yu Xiaoxuan beside him and nodded. "Well, I am number 89, what about you?" Yu Xiaoxuan gave him a sweet smile and said, "My number is relatively low, 167. Su Ju was a little surprised and said, "By the way, Xiaoxuan, haven't you been appointed by default? Why are you still participating in the freshman competition?" Yu Xiaoxuan explained, "What I awakened was only an A-level violent ape. The one who liked me was Fengcheng Saiyu. I wanted to go to a better one, so I opened it." Su Ju smiled slightly and said, "That's it, then you have to work hard." "Well, you have to work hard too." Yu Xiaoxuan encouraged. "Xiaoju, don't be discouraged, you can definitely do it." The first test is strength. The pet and its owner are tested separately, and the overall score is taken at the end. Lan Jinshan, I weigh 1,500 kilograms, and my pet weighs 2,500 kilograms, totaling 4,000 kilograms. Fan Xuan, I weigh 1,300 kilograms and my pet weighs 3,000 kilograms, totaling 4,300 kilograms. Soon it was Su Ju's turn. The examiner glanced at Su Ju and said, "Use all your strength to hit the dynamometer with the strongest blow, including your fists and kicks." Su Ju nodded to express his understanding, and then after the examiner indicated that it was okay to start, he suddenly kicked out with a shadowless kick. Bang! Then a terrifying number appeared on the dynamometer. 12,300 kilograms. Hiss! Seeing this number, the examiner was stunned and looked at the dynamometer again in disbelief. Then he turned his head and glanced at Su Ju, saying, "Have you entered the Silver Realm?" Su Ju nodded and said, "Well, I entered the Silver Realm yesterday." The examiner still felt a little unbelievable. He knew that even if he entered the Silver Realm, he would not have such terrifying power. However, his mission is to test the candidate's strength, not to trace the candidate's personal information. Test your pet. Su Ju raised his hand, and Dawang was summoned by him. The examiner can tell Dawang's identity at a glance, F-class Chinese pastoral dog. How is it possible? When did the F-class Chinese garden dog advance so quickly? Could it be that this guy's family is very rich, and what kind of natural treasures were given to this Chinese pastoral dog to make it enter the Silver Realm? Even the examiner didn't think about Su Ju entering the Silver Realm. Such a thing was really outrageous. The examiner was not a talkative person, so he waved his hand to signal Su Ju to let his pet beast start. Su Ju nodded and quickly said to Dawang, "Dawang, hit with all your strength." Woof! After receiving Su Ju's order, Dawang ran after a certain distance and slammed into the dynamometer. 13,200 kilograms. Hiss! As soon as such data came out, the examiner was shocked again. But then he shook his head. In his opinion, Da Huang could achieve such results only because of the natural resources and earthly treasures. After all, this kind of thing has happened before. If the child doesn't wake up well, parents who have the conditions will start to feed their pet beasts with heavenly materials and earthly treasures. I want to use this method to help my children achieve good results in the freshman competition. It's just that this kind of thing usually happens to D-level natal beasts more often. This is the first time he encountered it when it happened to F-level natal beasts. Well, but even the hearts of parents in the world. The examiner didn't say anything more and announced Suju's results. Suju, I weigh 12,300 kilograms, and my pet weighs 13,200 kilograms, totaling 25,500 kilograms. Hearing the examiner's words, many students cast surprised glances. At the same time, it puts a lot of pressure on those candidates who did not appear. This kind of thing naturally attracted the attention of several principals on the rostrum. 25,500 kilograms. This is a good result. It should be in the silver realm, right? What kind of animal is an F-class Chinese pastoral dog? That's not good. Well, it's a pity. Even if it's a D-class natal beast, I want it, but not F-class. Alas, I can't cultivate it at all. At first glance, this kid is a man of great talent and talent. Tisk tisk, but this guy's family is quite rich. Old Wang, I'll give this student to you. How about I won't snatch it from you? Asshole, F-class Chinese pastoral dog, how do you want me to train it? Just play with it. When Zhang Shan saw the discussion of the previous principles, he also sighed, there are so many rich people now. Well, it's all for the sake of the children, how pitiful the hearts of parents in the world are. Although it was his first time to be the principal, it was not the first time he had heard of such a thing. After Suju finished the test, he couldn't help but sigh when he saw that no one was selected in the first round. Although I had been prepared in my heart, I was still a little disappointed not to be chosen right away. He knelt down and patted Dawang on the head, and said, "Let's go." Dawang goes to test his speed. Woof. Dawang, on the other hand, didn't think too much about it and just did whatever his master asked him to do. Yu Xiaoxuan, who was assigned to the same group, couldn't help but sigh when she saw this scene. As expected, it was just like what my mother said, no matter how good Xiaoju performed, it was all in vain. Su Yu and his wife outside the court also sighed. When they saw that their son did not come out, they knew that it was time to enter the next round of testing. Xu Jing looked helpless and said, "If it doesn't work out, why don't you go to Fengcheng Yusho Vocational and Technical School?" Su Yu nodded and said, "Let's take a look. If it doesn't work, we have to go there." Alas. Suju, I am 3 minutes and 11 seconds, my pet is 3 minutes and 9 seconds, the total is 6 minutes and 20 seconds. Hiss. The people around him all gasped when they heard such horrific results. On the rostrum, several principals shook their heads when they heard it was Suju. The treasures provided by this little guy's family are not simple. Not only does his strength increase so much, but his speed is also good. It's just a pity that F-level Chinese garden dogs cannot be cultivated no matter how much resources they have. When Zhang Shan heard this result, he became interested. If it is said that the treasures of heaven, materials and earth are improved, it is also an improvement in a certain aspect. It is impossible to comprehensively improve speed and strength, just because taking such natural materials and earthly treasures has drug resistance, or a cooling off period. Zhang Shan pulled up the video of Suju testing his strength and speed and took a closer look. With many years of combat experience, Zhang Shan could tell at a glance that this little guy used skills when testing his strength. Being able to open more than 5 acupoints in such a short period of time means that this guy's family is not ordinary rich. And it's not just as simple as having money, this guy's own cultivation talent is also quite good. Being able to open 5 acupoints just 1 month after awakening is already pretty good. I remember that when I was his age, I had only opened 5 acupoints. Thinking of this, Zhang Shan couldn't help but think of the time when he participated in the freshman competition. So many years have passed in a flash. Also, what kind of skill is this, and why does it look so unfamiliar to me? The kick is so fast. Zhang Shan slowed down the scene and observed Suju's movements bit by bit. He soon determined that this was a skill he had never seen before. When he saw Da Huang using impact rather than biting when measuring force, he couldn't help but be stunned. When will the Chinese garden dog use the impact skill? Although the pet beast can also understand this impact skill in the later stage, it is not a particularly advanced skill. But what kind of natal beast is the Chinese garden dog? It is a natal beast with F-level potential. He knew very well how high the comprehension ability of F-level potential natal beasts was. Let alone F-level natal beasts, even C-level natal beasts could not even think of comprehending skills in such a short period of time. What's more, he also knows very well what kind of skill the impact is. An F-class impact would never achieve the results it does now. Of course, this does not rule out the possibility of being a result of natural treasures. Then Zhongshan watched the video of Suju testing his speed. Zhongshan soon discovered the difference and slowed down the scene again, focusing on Suju's footsteps. This sight made him narrow his eyes. This kid has at least 10 acupoints opened on his feet, which you can tell by his running posture. Opening 10 acupoints in 1 month is no longer something you can do with money. The more Zhongshan watched, the more interesting he became. This little guy is not simple. Open 10 acupoints in a month. The natal animal is an F-level potential Chinese pastoral dog. At this time, Zhongshan couldn't help but think of the founder of the martial arts school, thinking that the founder seemed to be in the same situation back then. When I think about this world, I can't help but curl up the corner of my mouth. Maybe I can make a big mistake here. In the following time, Suju tested his endurance again. With his Silver Realm cultivation, he was also able to overwhelm everyone. Zhongshan checked Suju's video almost immediately, and this view gave him some clues. He soon judged that this boy might not be a man of heaven and earth. If he was cultivated by the treasures of heaven and earth, his realm would definitely be illusory and would not be as solid as he is now. And if this guy hadn't eaten the treasures of heaven and earth, it would be terrible. With his own efforts, he brought the Chinese pastoral dog to the Silver Realm. The other way around. Interesting. A replica of Grandmaster. This apprentice will determine my kingdom. Not all principals of other schools are incompetent. Some people also see the difference in Suju. But when I saw the F-class Chinese garden dog again, I rationally chose to give up. The last item is to test the cooperation between the beast master and the pet beast, which is the so-called loyalty. The examiner glanced at Suju and Dawang and said, "Are you a Chinese pastoral dog?" Suju nodded. Now he was heartbroken and knew that no one would choose him. It seems that I can only enter Fengcheng Beast Control Vocational and Technical School through my father's relationship. But what major should I choose? The examiner nodded and said, "You don't need to take the test for this level. According to the skills of the Chinese garden dog, the loyalty will be 100%. I will give you full marks for this level." Suju nodded and said, "Thank you, examiner." After completing all 4 tests, Suju ranked first. According to the rules of the freshman competition, the top 10 will receive comments from the rostrum. It is better to say it is a two-way choice than a review. After all, if you like the students may not like you yet. In addition, if several schools are interested in a student at the same time, they must show their sincerity as much as possible, which is the condition given to the student. As the first placer, Suju was naturally the first to be criticized. Starting from Fengcheng Yiyu in order, Fengcheng Yiyu is also the best beast control school in Fengcheng. Zhou Tongsheng, as the principal of Fengcheng No. 1 Royal Academy, looked at Suju and said, "Suju, you performed very well, your body is very strong, and you have opened enough acupoints. But what I want to say is that we recruit beast masters, not physically strong men. I'm sorry, your natal beast does not meet our school's admission standards." Suju bowed slightly and thanked Zhou Tongsheng for his comments. "But in my heart, there are 10,000 grass mud horses running through me. Do you mean that I am not a beast master?" Immediately afterwards, Ji Yuqingzhou, the principal of Fengcheng Second Royal Academy, began his own comments. "What I mean is similar to Principal Zhou. Your physical body is indeed very powerful. I admit this, but the potential of the natal beast is too low. Unfortunately, you do not meet our school's admission standards." Suju also bowed slightly, his face showing neither happiness nor sadness, but he had already written down these 2 schools in his notebook. He is not a broad-minded person, not before time travel and not now. Tian Zhengyi, the principal of Fengcheng Sanyu, then commented, "Suju, what I want to say is that although you are physically strong, our school here is a beast control school, and we train beast masters, not reckless men. I hope you can understand the meaning of beast master. You are not suitable for our school." Hearing Tian Zhengyi's words, Suju clenched his fists. Very good, there is another name in the notebook. If I remember correctly, your name is Tian Zhengyi, right? I hope you remember what I said today. The comments from the next few principals were not much different. Although they were not as harsh as what Tian Zhengyi said, they still meant the same thing. Zhang Shan sneered in his heart, these guys are really blind and blind. Soon the microphone was turned to Zhang Shan. Zhang Shan looked at Suju and said, do you know what school this is? Suju looked at Zhang Shan. There was the name of the school in front of his name. If nothing unexpected happened, he might be his future principal, right? Well, Fengchang Yusho Vocational and Technical School. Zhang Shan smiled slightly and said, well, do you know what state I am in? Suju didn't understand what Zhang Shan meant, but he shook his head honestly. Zhang Shan pointed at the several principals in front of him and said, did you see that they are all kings, and the strongest ones are only the 8-star kings? What I want to say is, am I, Zhang Shan, the legendary 8-star beast master, enough? Are you qualified to be your master? Are you willing to become my direct disciple? Hiss. Hearing Zhang Shan's domineering words, Suju's eyes couldn't help but become moist. He knew that this was Zhang Shan standing up for him, and it was also an olive branch thrown by Zhang Shan to him. After being criticized and ridiculed by other principals, Suju couldn't help but be moved by the appearance of such a talented person. Suju nodded, knelt down on one knee and said, Master, please bow to me. Ha ha. Zhang Shan smiled so unscrupulously, completely ignoring the anger of the other principals. Okay, Suju, today your master will teach you a lesson. What is truth? The truth is that they sit here and ridicule you. You can't refute, and I sit here and scold them, they bullshit you don't dare to let go of one, do you know why? Zhang Shan turned his attention to several principals. The principals who were still a little angry now did not dare to look at Zhang Shan. Zhang Shan turned his attention to Suju again and continued, see, this is the benefit of strength. Without strength, you are nothing. When you have enough strength, even if you scold them in person, they will not dare to make eye contact with you. Suju was shocked in his heart. Is his master so domineering? Seeing Zhang Shan looking at him, Suju immediately expressed his position. Master said that sooner or later, I will use my strength to make them admit that I am a beast master. That's good. If they don't recognize you as a beast master today, then beat them until they do. Go back and prepare well today, and report to me at school tomorrow. Yes, master. The other students present were all filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. They can ignore Fengchang Yusho Vocational and Technical School. It is a garbage school and not worth mentioning. But being a direct disciple of an 8-star expert in the legendary realm is definitely the dream of countless people. Especially Zhang Shan's domineering words just now impressed countless new beast masters. When the rostrum was commenting, Su Yu and his wife were also in the audience. When they heard these principals' comments, they couldn't help but worry about their sons. The son finally chose a path of his own and regained the confidence to practice. Now being said to be worthless by these principals, they are really worried that their sons will not be able to think about it. Although they were angry, they could not stop the principals' comments. Until Zhang Shan's appearance and those domineering words made the couple extremely grateful to Zhang Shan. Although I went round and round, in the end I chose Fengchang Yusho Vocational and Technical School. But to be accepted as a personal disciple by an 8-star expert in the legendary realm is definitely a matter of honor for one's ancestors. The director of the Fengchang Education Bureau is only 3 stars in the legendary realm, and now his son's master is an 8th star in the legendary realm. How could they, a couple who have been in society for so many years, not understand that strength is everything? Now that I see my son becoming Zhang Shan's apprentice, I am all happy for my son. Zhang Shan's words made those principals very embarrassed, but in the face of the pressure of the 8 stars in the legendary realm, they really didn't dare to say anything. Not to mention they are today's special guest, Bai Jingshan, director of the Fengchang City Education Bureau. This legendary 3-star powerhouse also turned a blind eye to Zhang Shan's arrogant attitude. There is no way, this is an uncle, even the Minister of Education of my place cannot afford to offend him. Zhang Shan's previous words gave Suju a strong sense of identity. The moment he came out of the examination room, Suju had already made up his mind. This matter will never go away like this today. Especially Tian Zhengyi of the three beast masters, sooner or later I will let you admit with your own words that I am the beast master. When Su Yu and his wife saw their son coming out, they were equally excited. Xu Jing looked at her son and said, "Good boy, don't listen to those people. Your master is right. If they don't recognize you as a beast master, beat them until they do." Su Ju nodded and said, "Mom, I know what to do." Su Yu looked equally happy at this moment and said, "Today is a good day, let's go out and celebrate." Your dad is right. Being accepted as a direct disciple by an 8-star warrior from the legendary realm is definitely something worth celebrating. The family left the examination room happily, completely ignoring the envious and jealous eyes of others. Yu Xiaoxuan also didn't expect that Su Ju would have such an opportunity. You must know that he is an 8-star strong man in the legendary realm. To be accepted as a direct disciple by such a strong man, Su Ju's future is definitely beyond his imagination. Yu Xiaoxuan's mother also had some regrets. If she had known this, she would have given Xiaoxuan more care and attention when Su Ju was at his lowest point. You must know that he is an 8-star expert in the legendary realm. Even if Su Ju awakens an F-level natal beast, he is still worthy of his own daughter. Ji Yufeng was the most depressed. He also didn't expect that Shanyu would have a chance to turn around. Hearing other principals' comments before made Ji Yufeng feel happy. The more unpleasant the comments on the stage, the happier he was. But I never expected that a strong man of 8 stars in the legendary realm would finally come out, and he would also accept Su Ju as his direct disciple. It's so unreasonable. The one Su Ju awakened was only an F-level natal beast. Why was he accepted as a direct disciple by a strong man in the legendary realm? Ji Yufeng was not the only one who had such thoughts. Many people present were a little aggrieved. Didn't that Su Ju's family have money and get him expensive materials and treasures? We are relying on our true strength, and he is completely opportunistic. Unfair, but no one dared to say such words. Accompanied by his parents, Su Ju completed the admission procedures the next day. But when filling in the major, Su Ju became depressed. Pet animal beauty salon, mental health of pets, or give a pet animal a massage. Su Ju looked at the school staff and said, "Well, can I fill in my major later?" The staff member also knew that this was the principal's direct disciple. After all, in yesterday's freshman competition, the principal of his school was really domineering and overpowering the others. Those principals who looked down on our school before were afraid to let out a single fart under the pressure of Zhongshan. He was also present yesterday and saw clearly that the Minister of Education by Jingshan did not say a word. It shows how awesome our principal is. Correspondingly, if your principal is awesome, your school will also have a good reputation. After hearing what Su Ju said, he said, "Well, okay, you'd better ask the principal and let him help you choose a major." Su Ju quickly said, "Well, thank you, teacher." "Well, go ahead." Su Ju left the registration office and found the principal's office alone. "Master." Su Ju knocked on the door and walked in. When he saw Zhongshan, he quickly said hello. Seeing Su Ju come in, Zhongshan said, "Well, here we come." Zhongshan asked straight to the point. "I want to know, have you or your pet beast ever eaten any natural treasures?" Su Ju shook his head and said, "Master, my natal beast and I have never eaten any of the heavenly and earthly treasures." Even Zhongshan never expected that Su Ju had never tasted any of the heavenly and earthly treasures. In his opinion, Su Ju must have some talent and have tasted some kind of natural treasure. Now when I heard Su Ju say this, I couldn't help but become surprised. "You haven't eaten Tiansai Dabao, so how come you got better so quickly?" Naturally, Su Ju would not say that he had a system, and explained, "Master, I should have a physique that is easy to awaken, or it can be attributed to my training method." "Is it easy to rejuvenate your body?" Zhongshan automatically ignored what Su Ju said about training methods. But he was attracted to Su Ju's easy-to-resuscitate physique. This so-called easy-to-resuscitate physique is really not groundless. He has met several such people. Zhongshan looked at Su Ju and said, "Are you sure you haven't eaten any treasures from heaven and earth? Don't lie to me." Su Ju nodded and said, "Master, why am I lying to you? If you don't believe it, you can bring out the treasures of heaven and earth, and I will eat them for you on the spot. When Zhongshan heard Su Ju's words, he couldn't help but laugh. This kid had a taste for him. Ha ha ha, okay, you are such a clever kid. Now that you say so, I really have a 3,000-year-old ginseng, so I will treat it as a meeting gift. Thank you, Master. Su Ju knew about this enlightenment ginseng, which was definitely a rare treasure. The older the ginseng is, the more acupoints it will open. However, this ginseng also has a drawback, that is, the opening of the acupoints is completely random. The acupuncture points opened by using Kaichao ginseng are different for everyone. Also, this ginseng has the best effect when used for the first time. When used again, it will have strong drug resistance. Originally, Su Yu also prepared Chao Chao ginseng for Su Ju, but what his father prepared was a 1,000-year-old Chao Chao ginseng, which was completely incomparable with the 3,000-year-old. Zhongshan smiled slightly, handed the orifice-opening ginseng tree to Su Ju, and said, "Didn't you say that you have a body that is easy to open orifices? Come on, give up your seat and see how many acupoints you can open." Su Ju didn't know whether he had a physique that was prone to awakening, but he had no intention of explaining it. Instead, I directly took this 3,000-year-old ginseng. As for what will happen next, at worst I made a wrong judgment. Zhongshan also wanted to see if Su Ju had deceived him. This Chao Chao ginseng is also a rare treasure of heaven and earth. If this kid has eaten other heaven and earth treasures before, this Chao Chao ginseng will definitely have no effect. What he values most in recruiting disciples is their character. If he can deceive himself now, who knows what he will do in the future? Su Ju didn't think too much about it. For him, he had never taken any natural treasures, so he was not afraid of any medicinal conflicts. As the 3,000 years of enlightenment in my hands took down the ginseng, the sound of God's reward system sounded in my ears. After detecting that the host has swallowed the 3,000-year-old ginseng, this system will maximize the use of this energy to serve the host. Yo, Su Ju was a little confused. Logically speaking, isn't this system a system where God rewards those who work hard? You should not respect this kind of shortcut. How can you still try your best to serve yourself? Just when Su Ju had this idea, the system's voice sounded in Su Ju's ears again. This system is a system of rewards for those who work hard, not a training system. The birth of a strong man is not only about hard training, but also the natural resources and treasures are an indispensable part. Therefore, this system will maximize the use of the heavenly materials and earthly treasures obtained by the host, and there will be no conflict of medicinal properties. Hiss. Su Ju couldn't help but take a breath. He didn't care much about what he said before. But the last sentence, which had no conflict of medicinal properties, moved him. Doesn't this mean that there will be no cool-down period for using Tiansai Dabao in the future? Yes, host, but this system does not recommend that the host be completely upgraded with heavenly materials and earthly treasures, as that will not be conducive to the host's future growth. Zhongshan saw Su Ju eating the 3,000 years awakening ginseng without hesitation, with a satisfied expression on his face. He knew that by doing this, Su Ju was also proving to himself that he had never tasted heavenly materials and earthly treasures before. And if you have never tasted Tiansai Dabao and have such results, then you have really found a treasure. After taking a 3,000-year-old ginseng, Su Ju felt warm all over. Then he felt a familiar sharp pain, which gave Su Ju a bad feeling. Sure enough, the sound of the God-rewarding system sounded in my ears. Host, pain is also a kind of training, bear it. Open Gongsun Acupoint 2, Zhaohai Acupoint 2. Su Ju felt an unimaginable sharp pain, and a painful expression appeared on his face. Zhongshan was shocked by Su Ju's situation and didn't know what happened. Logically speaking, even if this kid deceived himself and developed drug resistance, he shouldn't have this expression. Then he saw the energy fluctuations in Su Ju's body, and it only took a few seconds for Su Ju's expression to calm down. Master, don't worry about me. I have a special constitution. When the orifices are opened, there will be severe pain. The more acupoints are opened, the stronger the pain will be. Seeing Su Ju recover, Zhongshan nodded. Although he had never encountered this kind of situation before, he was not too surprised. Everyone's physique is different. Su Ju's situation is not too special. Well, How many acupoints have been opened? Suju quickly replied. Gongsun Point, Zhaohai Point. Open 2 acupoints at once. Zhongshan nodded. No wonder he had the expression just now, it is really not easy to open 2 acupoints at one time. Suju continued. Master, it's for both legs and 4 acupoints. Depend on. Even though Zhongshan was well informed, he had never encountered such a thing before and couldn't help but curse. 4 acupuncture points opened at the same time. What kind of divine physique is this? Suju still wanted to show off, but he felt that bad premonition from before came again, and said, no, it's about to happen again. Not good. Zhongshan really wants to give this guy a blow on his head. How the hell do you think he can call him a premonition of enlightenment? But thinking about the painful expression on this kid just now, I felt a little understanding. And Suju's ears heard the sound of the God's Way rewarding system again. Host, patience is a quality. As the saying goes, long-term pain is worse than short-term pain. Open Teibai points 2, Taichung points 2, and Chaoyan points 2. Nima, 6 acupuncture points opened at the same time. Suju wanted to complain, but the pain was far worse than before. The pain this time made Suju unable to stand any longer and lay directly on the ground. When Zhongshan saw this scene, he couldn't help feeling that the world was so big and full of wonders. This was the first time I saw such an enlightenment reaction, and it was an eye-opener. Suju, on the other hand, was twitching on the ground like an epileptic patient. Fortunately, the time was still a few seconds, otherwise he felt that he might not be able to survive it. Ho. Suju sat up, gasping for air. At the same time, his clothes were wet with sweat due to the severe pain. Seeing Suju like this, Zhongshan asked with concern, how are you doing, are you okay? Suju shook his head and said, Master, the medicine is a bit strong this time, and I can't get used to it for a while. Zhongshan smiled slightly and asked, are the 4 orifices opened at the same time? Suju shook his head and said, not this time the Chaoyan points, Taichung point, and Teibai point of both feet are opened. It hurts me to death. Zhongshan was shocked again. Could this kid be just to make him angry? 6 orifices open at the same time. Is it so outrageous? If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would never have believed such an outrageous thing. He knew that although the 3,000-year-old orifice opening ginseng was powerful, it was considered top-notch if it could open 8 acupoints. However, this kid actually opened 10 acupoints, which he had to call a pervert. Now that he has seen his awakening like this, Zhongshan has completely believed that he has a physique that is easy to awaken. Suju waited for 5 minutes before reluctantly standing up, but his legs were still shaking slightly. Master. Just when Suju was about to say something else, that bad premonition came again. Master, I'm about to get my acupoint again, don't worry about me, or you can plug your ears. The reason why Suju said this was because the feeling this time was much stronger than before. As expected, Suju almost collapsed due to the God's reward system. Host, patience is a quality. Don't you want to experience your own limits? Now I will open Rangu points 2, Dazong points 2, Shuichuan points 2, Zhaoshan points 2, and Fuliu points for you. Asterisk 2. When Suju heard the words of Tiandao rewarding system, he felt as if 10,000 grass and mud horses were running through his heart. 10 orifices open at the same time. You don't want me to live. Why don't you want to experience your own limits? Suju really wanted to say no. Whoever wants to experience this stuff can try it. Also, the ginseng that master gave me is a kind of broken ginseng. Why is the medicine so powerful? Without giving Suju much chance to react, unprecedented pain came. Then Zhongshan saw Suju rolling on the ground. With the previous 2 experiences, Zhongshan was not too panicked, but felt that this kid's physique was too strange. And Suju now truly understands what it means to feel like a second is like a year. The extreme pain made him feel like he didn't want to live. I just felt like I was burned to death in a fire in my previous life, which was not as strong as this feeling now. Now this kind of pain will not make people faint, but always hovers at the limit of what the human body can bear, making Suju truly feel the feeling of being hurt to death. For a few seconds, Suju's face lost all color, as if he was seriously ill. Seeing Suju like this, Zhongshan asked with concern. Xiaoju, are you okay? Suju opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but found that he didn't even want to speak now. He shook his head slightly, indicating that something was wrong with him. At this moment, the voice of the God's reward system sounded in Suju's ears again. Congratulations to the host for completing the extreme endurance training. As a reward, the physical strength is +20, all attributes are +10, the grain root Acupoint is open 2, the latest running route of the shadowless foot 1, and the opening of the Acupoint is over. When Suju heard that it was finally over, he felt a little regretful at the same time. This is a 3,000-year-old ginseng that opens the mind. If you eat it again, it won't have the same effect. As the physical strength was increased by 20, Suju felt warm all over, and the previous extreme fatigue disappeared. Then came the pain of opening acupuncture points. Suju felt that it was just like that, completely incomparable to before. I tried to stand up and take 2 steps, and found that although I was still a little tired, I had no problem walking normally. And because a full 22 acupoints were opened this time, the soul power they brought to him was restored, and Suju's body was improving rapidly. After adapting for a while, he said to Zhongshan, Master, the resuscitation is over, and the medicinal power of the resuscitation ginseng is gone. Zhongshan looked at Suju in amazement and said, Xiaoju, your physique is so special. The process of taking Kaichao ginseng to rejuvenate one's body for others takes about 3 days, but it is over in less than an hour for you. Suju forced a smile and said, Master, don't they say that long-term pain is worse than short-term pain, and what's more, this is great, it saves more time. Ha ha. Zhongshan smiled slightly and said, This is really the first time I have seen you in this situation. Are the 6 orifices open at the same time this time? Suju shook his head and said, Master, the pain this time is really painful, but the acupoints that were opened are also really painful. This time, double Rangu acupoints, Dazong acupoints, Shuichuan acupoints, Zhaoshan acupoints, and Fuxin acupoints were opened. Lu acupoint, Gugan acupoint, 12 acupoints are opened at the same time. This time, even Zhongshan couldn't help but complain crazily. I know very well what happened during my 3,000 years of enlightenment. Although it is indeed precious, there is still a big gap between it and the top-notch natural materials and earthly treasures. But just like this, a 3,000-year-old orifice opening ginseng was actually opened by this kid to 22 acupoints. Zhongshan only felt that he was well informed, but this was the first time he had seen such an outrageous thing. A 3,000-year-old ginseng opens 22 acupoints. Zhongshan only feels that a 10,000-year-old ginseng may not have this effect. Now it seems that this guy is not wrong at all when he says that he has a body that is easy to awaken. He couldn't even imagine that this was not a physique that was easy to awaken, and what else could be considered a physique that was easy to awaken. After about a minute of recovery, Suju had recovered a lot, and there was a trace of color on his face. Master, there is something I want to consult with you. I hope you can help me make a decision. After Zhongshan was shocked, Suju was satisfied again. This time he really found a treasure. Well, tell me, why are you undecided? Suju asked. Master, what major do you think would be better for me to choose when I enter our school? Hearing Suju's words, Zhongshan also realized that this was not a serious beast control school. What major should I study? Pet beauty salon, or provide psychological counseling to pet animals? Zhongshan spoke directly without thinking. Warrior type. Martial arts department. Master, does our school have this department? It's not that Suju has never heard of the warrior major, but it seems that there has never been such a major in Fengchang. Zhongshan smiled slightly and said, Well, it was true that it didn't exist before, but now that I'm here, doesn't the warrior school already exist? Your master and I are a staunch supporter of the warrior school, so naturally you must be the successor of our warrior school. Quote. Warrior type. Warrior school. Suju didn't quite understand what his master meant, and looked at Zhongshan with a puzzled expression. Zhongshan saw Suju's expression and explained to him, Do you know about the warrior sect? Suju nodded, then shook his head and said, Master, I have only heard of this name. I don't know exactly what the warrior school is. Zhongshan said, The so-called warrior school is a branch of the combined style among beast masters. Our sect is very different from traditional beast masters. To put it simply, traditional beast masters focus on fighting with pet beasts, and there is a school called fusion style. This so-called fusion style is to merge with the pet beast into one, and use the pet beast's skills to fight artificially. After all, you also know that no matter how well we cooperate with the pet beasts, it is better to fight by ourselves. Today, the combined flow can be considered a relatively powerful school, and our warrior school is a branch of the combined flow. The difference between our warrior style and the fusion style is that we not only rely on the skills of our pet beasts to fight, we also learn and practice our skills. In this way, when we merge with our pet beasts, we can not only use the skills of the pet beast, but also our own skills. Quote, "It's just that you also know that a beast master's time is limited. If you have to cultivate pet beasts and open acupoints, it will definitely be a waste of time. So our school has a drawback. That is, we can't contract too many pet beasts, which is much lower than other beast masters. This leads to the fact that there are not many people in our school." Suju understood it and felt that this warrior school seemed to be highly compatible with him. "Isn't my current shadowless foot a skill?" Zhongshan looked at Suju and continued, "I chose you because you used your skills in the freshman competition. You were able to open more than a dozen acupoints in such a short period of time, which is in line with the enrollment standards of our warrior sect. How about it? Are you interested in joining our warrior sect?" Suju smiled slightly and said, "Master, to tell you the truth, I awakened the F-class natal beast Chinese pastoral dog. Originally, I planned to upgrade myself with the natal beast. Your warrior style is very consistent with my previous ideas." Quote, "Upgrade with your own natal beast." Zhongshan looked at Suju with great interest and said, "Come on, let's talk about it. How did you come up with this idea?" Suju explained, "Master, you also know that my natal beast is an F-level Chinese pastoral dog. My dad told me that traditional beast masters use their natal beasts to upgrade with their masters. Then since the natal beast can lead its owner to upgrade through a spiritual contract, can it also be the other way around? Your cultivation talent is obviously better than ordinary people, so you can definitely upgrade with the natal beast, and you can find a different path." Zhongshan nodded and said, "Boy, no one has thought of your idea, and you are not a pioneer." When Suju heard this, he suddenly became interested and looked at Zhongshan expectantly. When Zhongshan saw Suju now, he felt more and more satisfied. "Do you know the founder of our warrior school? His natal animal is the F-class Chinese pastoral dog. But do you know his final achievement?" Suju shook his head when he heard this and asked, "Master, what state is Master Patriarch in? Has he reached the legendary state?" "Legendary realm, ha ha ha. Boy, the pattern is too small. The ancestor was a 9-star beast master back then, do you understand? A 9-star beast master in the tidal realm." Hearing the master's words, Suju couldn't help but take a breath. "I used to think that I was the pioneer on this road, but now it seems that someone has already walked this road. But it's normal to think about it. The beast-controlling civilization has been passed down for so long, and someone will definitely think of such a path." Zhongshan looked at Suju and said, "Don't be surprised, he is a beast master of 9 stars in the tidal realm. How about it, you can't think of it, right?" Suju nodded heavily and said, "Well, I really didn't expect that." Zhongshan faced Suju and said, "Now it seems that I was right about the teacher. You are indeed the most suitable successor to my warrior sect." Then he looked Suju up and down and said, "I saw you using a skill yesterday. How many skills were you using?" Suju answered honestly, 12 whole shadowless feet. Shadowless feet. Zhongshan was slightly confused. After thinking about it carefully, he still didn't find such a skill in his memory. "Boy, why don't I remember this skill? Where did you learn it?" Suju said embarrassedly, "Master, I didn't learn this skill, I created it myself." "What?" Zhongshan's jaw dropped in shock. He looked at Suju and said, "You said this 12-hole shadowless foot was created by you yourself?" Suju nodded and said, "Well, I only opened 3 acupoints before, and I accidentally connected these 3 acupoints. This is the prototype of shadowless foot. Later, as I open the acupoints, as there are more and more, the connections become more and more complicated." The expression on Zhongshan's face was wonderful. He never dreamed that he had accidentally picked up a piece of peerless jade. This skill is not something that can be created just because it is created. If it is not done well, the meridians will be cut off, so few people try it. The other is to create a skill, which is not an easy task and requires a lot of deduction. It does not mean that connecting a few acupoints is a skill. Zhongshan stood up and circled around Suju, saying, "During this period, you didn't go crazy." Suju shook his head and said, "No. Then how do you connect these acupoints and what is your basis?" Suju answered honestly, "Master, I don't know, I just felt that I could connect like this, and then I connected like this." Stream of consciousness. There are many schools of this creation technique, the most popular of which is the bionic style, which creates human skills based on the skills of ape-like pets. There is also a complex genre called deduction flow. People in this genre are very smart and can calculate how skills operate based on various formulas. But the most fantasy thing is stream of consciousness. This genre has no scientific basis. It just feels like it can be done, and then it is done. Now it seems that my apprentice is the so-called stream of consciousness, and has successfully created a 12-trick skill. This is a 12-aperture skill, so it has to be an E-level skill, right? Zhongshan looked at Suju and said, "Attack me with your shadowless feet. Let me see what the power of your self-created skill is." Suju nodded and said, "Master, the characteristics of my shadowless kick are fast kick speed, high attack frequency, and a certain superposition effect." Zhongshan nodded after hearing this and said, "Well, attack me, don't stop." "Good." Suju stopped grinding and began to use the shadowless kick against Zhongshan. Zhongshan would naturally not take a silver-level attack seriously. Suju's attack was easily intercepted, and his eyes became brighter and brighter. This kid's self-created skills are pretty good. The attack frequency is indeed pretty good, and the power is also pretty good. I used to think that this skill had E-level power, but now it seems that my estimate was seriously underestimated. The shadowless kick performed by this kid is definitely D-level. Although in the eyes of others, there is not much difference between E-level and D-level, Zhongshan knows that the skills created by this kid are not simple. The D-level skills on the market now have at least 16 connection points, but this guy only has 12. This advantage goes without saying. That's it. After hearing his master's words, Suju quickly stopped his attack. "Master, I just opened 22 more acupoints, and I want to connect these 22 acupoints with the previous 12 acupoints." "What?" Zhongshan looked at Suju in disbelief and said, "Boy, are you serious?" Suju nodded and said, "Master, I have a hunch that the acupoints that are opened now are all on the feet or calves, so there is no big problem in connecting them." Zhongshan thought for a moment and said, "Boy, do you know what the concept of skills connecting 34 acupoints is?" Suju shook his head. He didn't know much about these things. He was either training or practicing before, so he didn't have time to understand them at all. Zhongshan looked at Suju and said, "Your previous shadowless feat with 12 acupoints already have D-level strength. If you can connect 34 acupoints, your skill will at least have B-level strength. Do you understand?" Suju nodded, looked at Zhongshan seriously and said, "Master, I want to give it a try. I feel that we should be able to connect." Zhongshan looked at Sujuju and was speechless. Could this be the so-called stream of consciousness? "Okay, with me here, even if there is an accident, I can interrupt you in time. Don't worry and try it." "Thank you, Master." Suju closed his eyes and calculated according to the previous reward route of the Tiandao reward system. After confirming that there was no problem, he opened his eyes. "Master, it's ready." The corner of Zhongshan's mouth twitched, and when you closed and opened your eyes, you told me that the creation was completed. Drinking water is nothing more than that, right? Boy, don't think about it carefully. Aren't you being a little hasty so quickly? Suju shook his head slightly and said, "Master, I think it should be fine." Zhongshan nodded and said, "Okay, since you think it's almost done, then give it a try. Don't worry, I'm here, and I will definitely not let you have any accidents." Suju nodded, and then said to Zhongshan, "Master, I'm going to start. Come on, let me see how your deduction goes." Suju nodded slightly, then used his soul power to follow the new operating method and kicked Zhongshan. Bang! Zhongshan looked at Suju with wide eyes and a look of disbelief. Suju quickly stopped attacking and said carefully, "Master, did my kick hurt you?" Zhongshan shook his head, then gave Suju a head and said, "Why don't you connect one by one when you are riding a horse? Who asked you to connect together?" At this moment, Zhongshan felt as if 10,000 grass and mud horses were running through his heart. This kid is so crazy. In my whole life, I have never seen such a reckless person. Before, he thought that Suju could deduce acupuncture points one by one. After all, this was a serious deduction method. But this guy is really good. He directly connected the 22 acupoints at the back. Fortunately, he was able to connect successfully. If the connection failed, his veins would definitely be cut off on the spot. Even if he is in the legendary realm, he can only save his life, not restore him to his original state. Reckless. How reckless. This was Zhongshan's first reaction to Suju. Then comes genius. What a genius. I have learned a lot today. Someone created a skill that connects 34 acupoints in front of me. At this moment, Zhongshan just wants to say, awesome. Suju was hit on the head and said with an aggrieved look, "Master, didn't I tell you, the deduction is complete." Grass. Zhongshan cursed hard and said, "Do you know how dangerous it is for you to be like this? You have succeeded. If you don't succeed, even I can't protect you." Facing Zhongshan's verbal output, Suju nodded aggrievedly, looking like he was being taught. Zhongshan finally got tired of scolding and said to Suju, "Continue your attack and let me see what level this shadowless kick is now." Suju responded and once again followed the new operating method and began to use the shadowless kick against Zhongshan. Bang, bang, bang. Zhongshan's eyes widened, with a look of disbelief on his face. This kid is really a genius. This skill definitely has B-level strength. The kick speed is more than 3 times faster than before, and the attack frequency can reach about 10 times per second. The only thing missing now is the strength of the soul, which cannot fully unleash the power of this skill. Alright, Suju quickly stopped the attack and said, "Master, I feel that the power of these 34 orifices is not much greater." Zhongshan said angrily, "Do you know why?" Suju quickly shook his head and said, "Master, please let me know." Zhongshan snorted and said, "This skill of yours can definitely be rated as B level. If you feel that it is not powerful, it is because your level is too low. Do you understand?" Suju nodded and said, "Well, thank you master for your guidance." Zhongshan nodded, looked at the time, and said, "Well, let's go back and feel the school environment. Although this is not a serious beast control school, it is not without its benefits." Suju became interested, looked at Zhongshan and said, "Master, what's the benefit?" Zhongshan smiled and said, "There are many advantages to this. The first one is that the place is big enough and not as crowded as other schools." When Suju heard this, the corner of his mouth twitched, but when he thought about it, it was indeed like this. I heard that some schools have tight accommodations, and there are even cases where 2 people share a room. You must know that this is a beast master, not a school for ordinary people in previous lives. We are all beast control masters, and no one has any secrets when it comes to training. It is indeed inconvenient to live in a double room. If you think about it this way, what master said is indeed an advantage. Zhongshan continued. Second, the food here is good. I have eaten there several times and it suits my taste very well. Su Juxin said, "Can this food be bad? We have professional chefs here. Although it is said to be food for pet animals like to eat it, so how could people not like to eat it?" Zhongshan continued. Besides, the girls here are good and suitable for finding a partner. Let me tell you, there are some good girls in the fashion design department. You have to pay attention. Suju looked embarrassed and said, "Master, didn't you say that women will only affect the speed of drawing our swords?" Zhongshan looked at Suju in surprise and asked, "Who did you listen to?" Suju touched his head in embarrassment and said, "Isn't it? I heard people say that it is not a good thing to think about a girlfriend too early. Moreover, women will distract from training time. Anyway, I am not planning to find a girlfriend at this time." Zhongshan nodded, with a cowardly expression on his face, and said, "Boy, it's really difficult for you to have this kind of consciousness at your age. You're right, With strength, what kind of woman doesn't? Master said so. Zhang Shan continued. Then there is the serious beast master in our school. You are the only one now, so you have the resources and you want to go. Hiss. Hearing the master's words, Suju couldn't help but take a breath. He really hadn't thought about this before, but now that he heard his master say this, he felt that this was indeed his advantage. In other schools, no matter how excellent your performance is, the school will not give all its resources to you. But it's different here. I'm the only serious Beastmaster student here. Although there are not many resources, if they are all concentrated on themselves, that is a different matter. Zhang Shan continued. I have seen the wealth of this school before, and the accumulation over hundreds of years is really impressive. Master, are there still stocks? Zhang Shan nodded and said with a smile. Of course, this school did not follow the path of cultivation before, but the Education Bureau issues certain cultivation resources every year. Although it cannot be compared with other schools, it is still not enough to train you alone. Problem. After hearing the master's words, Suju's eyes couldn't help but light up. I didn't expect that the Beast Control Vocational and Technical School, which has always been underappreciated by others, would have such an advantage. Zhang Shan continued. I have seen the inventory of this school, and it is not ordinary, so I am planning to recruit a few more students in a while. Suju nodded, but he didn't feel that his resources were being taken away. After all, can his master still trick him? Zhang Shan did not hide anything from Suju, saying, We have just established your current martial arts department. Now you are the only student, and you don't even have a teacher. So I wrote a letter to senior brother before, asking him to come over to teach. Along with him are other geniuses from our martial arts department, so even if you are here, you don't have to worry about not having a good teaching environment. When Suju heard this, he became interested and quickly asked, Master, what is the realm of senior brother? Speaking of this, Zhang Shan couldn't help but show a satisfied smile on his face, and said, Your senior brother, your studies are not very good, you are just the king of 9 stars. Suju felt that his master was in Versailles, the 9 stars of the king realm, so that was all. Zhang Shan continued. Your senior brother used to teach at the 3 Royal Beast School in the imperial capital. This time he comes here and will bring several good seedlings, all of whom are the inheritors of our warrior school. Suju nodded and said, Well, master, are these students also in the same grade as me? Zhang Shan shook his head and said, Not all, there are those in the 1st, 2nd and 3rd grade, but not in the 4th grade for the time being. Suju stopped talking after listening, but his eyes flickered, full of expectations for his future campus life. Otherwise, it would be too lonely to be alone. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.